Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am James Hewson, your host for this morning's event, and I wish you a very warm welcome to CBRE Vietnam's Real Estate Market Forum for 2021. Moving on to the agenda today, our event will be divided into two parts. The first part will comprise of some market update presentations from CBRE's speakers on the key sectors within Vietnam. This will then be followed by the second part of this morning's event, which will be the Q&A session with our key speakers from KCN Vietnam, Masterise Homes and Fraser's Property Vietnam. So to introduce our CBRE speakers for this morning, first we'll have a presentation led by Jonathan Flexer on the office sector, followed by Ms. Mai Vo for the retail sector, Mr. Hugh Lei for industrial, and lastly, Mr. Kiet Vo for the residential sector. So without further ado, we will start off with our first presentation of this morning from Mr. Jonathan Flexer on the office sector after this quick Top Stories video.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan, and I'd like to take you through the office market for Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City for this morning's session. We'll be splitting it up into three sections, really. We'll be looking at the current situation, then we'll be running into a snapshot on the data side, and then we'll be looking through at our forecasting of what we see is going to come next. So, we've seen quite an interesting few months over the recent months. Hanoi has had its suffering in a way, and we've been suffered with some restrictions, but these are largely released, and we're seeing now that as the pictures here on the chart show very much increased activity, very contrasting to Ho Chi Minh City, with significant increases in the COVID testing and also the COVID diagnoses, with 270 new cases this morning. And Hanoi, after quite a break, I think about 10 days or 9 days, had 2 cases this morning also. This is actually reflected in the Google Mobility Index. So this, the top part of the chart shows the mobility itself. So you can see the tracking through that, and you can see that Hanoi is largely back to pre-COVID levels, whereas Ho Chi Minh City is falling. And again, the case numbers of the COVID diagnoses at the bottom reflect this quite clearly. Now, we'd like to get a bit of input and opinions from yourselves as the audience throughout this morning as we go through. So we'll start with the first poll question. So what is your strategy, or so what strategy are you or your company employing in the current time? So please do click on the poll button and provide your answer. Okay, so thank you very much for that. So we can see that actually 25 to 50% are 24% are still working in the office. We can see 14% are mostly in the office, almost 75%, and more than 75%, 23% of the respondents are working from the office. I suspect that no one in the office, and the below 25% is going to be largely in Ho Chi Minh City. And we can see that actually reflected in the APAC occupier survey that we ran through in June. So you can see at the top, APAC is largely more than 50% are operating in the offices. But at the bottom, Southeast Asia, the 50% or so, there is no one in the office, or less than 25%. And this is, as you've seen in the markets and across in the news, recent spikes in Malaysia, in Thailand, and of course, Cambodia, and now what we're facing in Vietnam. The stark contrast, of course, is with India. So what role is the office still got to play? We asked that of our occupiers in APAC, and actually we're pretty pleased with this result. And you can see that innovation, employee engagement, and team productivity, the majority of our occupiers actually said that either 50% or more of these activities are better off being done in the workplace. The standout is the individual productivity. So it's kind of 50-50. Some feel it's better to do it at home or in a remote working session where perhaps you can limit your interactions with others and really get down to focus. And others feel same, or in fact in the office. But the stark that I saw was the team productivity. So 75% feel that team productivity is much better in the workplace. And actually that fits to my own personal viewpoint for my own productivity and team productivity also. And so we'd like to ask you another poll question. So how would you describe the business outlook over the next 6 months? So expanding, stable, or contracting? Right. So 32% of you are expanding, 56% stable, and 13% contracting. Very interesting, and it's very promising to see that a lot is, or the majority is stable, and very promising to see 32% as expanding. And again, largely that's reflected in what we are seeing across the region. And so you can see the chart on the left-hand side. The outlook is being better as the dark green steadily increasing until now. 65% as of May this year in APAC felt that the business sentiment was improving and better than it was. And you can see the chart on the right-hand side that 27% are expanding. So we're seeing it in Vietnam, we're seeing it in APAC. What are the key drivers of this? So we can see here, when we look at the Ho Chi Minh City and the Hanoi office markets itself, that is reflected under the contractions. So we saw in 2020, 27%, I believe, in Ho Chi Minh City, and in Hanoi was 17% of the transactions recorded were reductions and contractions. For half one 2020, 3% in Ho Chi Minh City and 0% in Hanoi. Whilst we're not expecting that to stop entirely, it's definitely reflected in the sentiment and the mood. And you could say that a lot of the fixes that had to be done for certain companies to reduce their costs were done in the trying times of 2020. And then we're seeing, again, a difference in how occupiers and how landlords are treating this and what they're doing. And we can compare quite nicely between 2020, particularly around the half one and start of half two, and then into half one of 2021. So the left-hand side is 2020. You see, I mentioned already the contractions, significant work from home in March and April as both cities were facing the initial outbreaks. And actually for certain industries that continued and has continued to this day. And when we compare that now to the half one, very few contractions and not expecting too many more. And in fact, work from home, yes, Ho Chi Minh City, currently a little for Hanoi, and we'll have to see how the pandemic continues. So what have landlords done to support? So last year we saw quite a lot of incentives. So there were some rent-free, rent reductions for a short period of time. So where that was 10 to 50% reductions in rent during the pandemic or the worst of the pandemic, depending on the industry. And we saw actually rents were coming down. There were reductions being provided, perhaps 1 to 5% on average. This is quite a stark difference when we look at 2021. We're seeing few or no short-term incentives being provided, and asking rents are not necessarily being reduced. We are seeing, however, escalations are not the standard escalation at renewal. Perhaps we're able to negotiate this as flat or reduced to what would otherwise be expected. And then we can look at the market snapshot. So this nicely shows grade A across Ho Chi Minh City on the left and Hanoi on the right-hand side. It's actually, again, something that we see quite clearly is Hanoi has a larger supply of grade A, and this is actually expected to increase. We have another 90,000 square meters of leasable that will be coming with Technopark when that enters to the market later on this year. We're seeing a slightly different picture. So asking rents in Ho Chi Minh City have fallen year on year by 6%, down to 41.6. Where in Hanoi, it's actually, we've seen the opposite. We've seen an increase of 3%. So we're almost at $27 per square meter. Vacancy rates for Ho Chi Minh City grade A remained largely stable, now 12%. For Hanoi, we saw quite a large increase with the Capital Place being brought to the market. It's hard, 90,000 square meters is going to have an impact on that. And that's now vacancy sitting at 18%. And we'll look slightly later on at how that fares. It's a trend. Looking at the grade B, we had a new supply in Ho Chi Minh City in half one, bringing that up now to 958,000, broadly in line with Hanoi at 997,000. Rents actually increasing, $25, the opposite to Hanoi, although in Hanoi, 13.9 is only a slight reduction. Vacancy rates, 9% in Ho Chi Minh City and 11% in Hanoi. So is the worst over? We don't know, in short, but this chart shows the net absorption. So the net absorption is the amount of square meters of space being taken up within the market. And we can see how 2020 was severely affected with those contractions, with certain terminations and some businesses going out and closing down. We've seen that upward trend, definitely, and this seems to be continuing. There is, as you saw in the sentiment and your own poll responses, there are expansions, there is positive light, and we're expecting to see that continue to move onwards. When we look at vacancy rates, you can see that the two charts here, both are improving. So there was new supply, particularly for Hanoi last year. So vacancy rates did increase in 2020 and have come down a good amount. We've seen vacancy rates in Ho Chi Minh now at 12% for the grade A and I think 9% for the grade B. The trend for the grade B being very little change in the year. Rents historically have been coming down slightly for the grade A in Ho Chi Minh City, and have now leveled off for the grade B. When we look at Hanoi, vacancy rates now 18.9%. I think important to note, this is an 11% year-on-year improvement. So again, that absorption is being very clearly reflected in the market. And grade B vacancy also falling with the supply that we had last year. Grade A rents a little increase, and grade B a little decrease. So the driving sectors, we looked at that expansion and a lot of this positivity that we're seeing in APAC, and also it's being seen in Vietnam. So the technology, media, telecoms, TMT, and banking sectors. And the chart on the left-hand side, this is showing the transactions by industry that we've been able to capture. And you can see that between 25 and 32% of the transactions across the country, or at least in the two cities, were from TMT. And almost 40% of Hanoi's transactions were banking, finance, insurance, and a large part of Ho Chi Minh City's also. And that's really quite good to see and interesting to see. The chart on the right is actually showing the sentiment for the following 3 years, the coming 3 years. And that's showing, again, the TMT and finance is looking at increasing. So that's providing good ideas and good thoughts that Vietnam itself should continue to see this trend. And I know that inquiries that we have across the country over the next 2-3 years do also reflect that. So how are these offices, telecoms, communications, and what are they doing? How are they structuring their workforce? So this is again from the APAC Asia Occupier Survey. So this is showing what is the remote working frequency. So you can see the majority now are looking at 1 day or up to 3 days of remote working. And we do see this reflected. There's numerous companies in Vietnam who are operating under the same principles, typically the multinationals, but we're seeing more and more flexibility coming to that market. And we're also seeing how companies are utilizing the office space. So if you're not having people in your office 5 days a week for 9 hours per day, do you need the same amount of desk space? So what we're seeing now is a sharing ratio across APAC starting to fall, and we are witnessing it with some of the corporates here in Vietnam. And one of our clients we're working with at the moment is now operating a desk ratio of 2 people for every 1 desk. And that's to ensure they can apply some collaboration spaces and look at the new ways of working. And you can see the industries that are really pursuing this approach on the right-hand side, led by the life sciences, finance, and technologies. From a landlord side, we're starting to see this focus on green credentials. So whether that's a LEED or a Lotus or some kind of certification. Ho Chi Minh City has been doing this for some time, and Hanoi with Capital Place last year. But we're seeing 3 new projects in the next 12 months that are looking at have already applied for their LEED certification. So Lancaster Luminaire, 36 Cat Ling, and Technopark Tower. Tenants do request this. They do look at this, and it is important to them, particularly for their corporate governance and the sustainability context that they're often held to. And with the COVID pandemic and the recent political unrest, particularly in the West, we're seeing that this is an improvement, and it's something they're really looking for. So looking at supply in Hanoi, for this year, we've got quite an input, 180,000 square meters. There's 90,000 in Gia Lam with Technopark Tower, and the rest spread out more to the west of the city. And then you see 2022, again, a significant new supply coming, and 2023 even more. So it's something to watch out for. Ho Chi Minh City, a much more moderate supply, which will help to support on the rental and the vacancies there. And you can see AP Tower, number 1 is one of the more recent ones. And I know this has had a very strong uplift, and I believe 50% already leased out within about a month of its opening, or something to this effect. So where do we sit on that forecasting. So what's going to happen? So much is going to focus on the rollout of the vaccine and the supply pipeline. You saw in the video at the very beginning, Vietnam is the lowest in Southeast Asia at its vaccine rollout. You can see even other countries in APAC, Taiwan, who have been very strong in the controlling of the vaccine, of the pandemic from non-medical means. Now it's time that we need to catch up with the rest of Southeast Asia. It'll be very interesting to see how the other markets are reacting. In terms of rental, actually for Grade A for Ho Chi Minh City, with that limited new supply, and we've seen that business sentiment improving, we do see that it's likely to be an increase in rental for 2022 by 1 or 2%, something like this. And then we see vacancy rates are looking at leveling off, and that's very pleasing to see. For Hanoi, we see vacancy rates falling as that supply is taken up, but do watch out for 2023 as more supply does come to the market, and very stable on the rental levels. And we'd like to really end on the last point, which is what the 4 key areas that we think are ones to watch. The economic outlook is looking very positive, and we're quite keen and looking to take part in this ourselves. And we're seeing a lot of our clients and even yourselves on the poll questions represent that. Looking at the vaccine visa, to me, this is a really, really, really important one. And there are improvements. I saw that 2 million Pfizer vaccines have been delivered this coming weekend to Vietnam, and that we're looking at getting this. But until the country can open up, or we can stop the severe restrictions and restrictions on mobility, we're going to have a problem. And it's important, I think, that we are able to keep up. Strategies are changing. We've looked at some of the remote work strategies. We looked at some of the ratios and the density of office space in both cities. And this is something that's going to continue. For landlords, be creative, start to provide a little bit, if you have more space, then can you support on that flexibility that tenants are looking for and occupiers are seeking for? And lastly, definitely, I think we're going to see a strong increase on the green and wellness credentials. And not only on the landlord side, and we're seeing more tenants and more occupiers who are registering their office space with LEED, and also looking at getting wellness certificates for their space in a way to drive employment and recruitment, and also their corporate brands. And with that, thank you very much for listening to the office. I'd like to hand over to Ms. Mai Vo in our retail team, who will be able to run through for her section. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Market Forum 2021. I would like to start with my presentation today. So again, COVID-19 was the most talked about the story during 2020, and even Vietnam was the most country, that's successful contain the pandemics during 2020. However, recently that the fourth wave of COVID-19 hit firstly to Bắc Giang province and now to Ho Chi Minh City, especially that heavily impact to our life and of course a business situation. Then the closures and restriction would still continue in the high risk area. Okay. For the landlord side, and from the mode of the wait and see mode, nowadays that landlord has to show more support to the tenants, has to retain the existing tenant, to preserve the lease at the shopping mall, and try to stabilize the occupancy rates of the shopping center. from retailer side, and immediately that they have to apply the cost cutting, and eventually that they have to renegotiate that in terms of the rent, and they try to generate the cash flow, the streamline operations, and also try to stabilize the operation and the workforce. The tenants mostly they have to review the expansion strategy, and recently that some firms has to offer the vaccination to the staff, try to maintain the business or operation. On the macro view, that the retails and service turnover in the first half of 2021 just an increase of 4.9% compared to compared to the index of 2020. And retail business closures had increased at 26% year on year comparing to 2020. Mobility index, that's to show that how the people move around and in response of the combating the COVID-19. The general movements of Vietnam already reduced at 36% compared to 16% in Q4 2020. The movement to the grocery and pharmacies that reduced 8% compared to the quarter 4 of 2020. At the index, they increased at 9%. The movement of the people to workplace reduced to 14% compared to 18% in Q4 2020. And of course, that Vietnam is making efforts to control the situations. That, however, the unexpected new wave of the situation right now already making the consumer that's worried too much. Okay, just look at the charts on your left-hand side showing the monthly retail sales growth of Vietnam's comparing to other countries in the region. The Singapore, already reached to 55%, while Vietnam reached only 30% in April. China was the first country got the monthly retail sales growth on the early January. So the pickup here just showing that when the government is open for vaccination, so people feel more comfortable and more confident to go out for shopping. However, in Vietnam, the consumer confidence index which seen is not really improved since the first wave of the COVID-19. Talking about the retail property snapshot of the first half of 2021, both city, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, the total retail space remains at 1 million square meter at the net area in both CBD and non-CBD area. In Ho Chi Minh City, we have a record one project launching in May, 16,000 square meter in a non-CBD area. However, it was asked to close and after 2 weeks of operation. The asking rent of CBD zone in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City stay quite stable. However, that in non-CBD area, both Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City records that the asking rent reduced to 5% in both cities. And the vacancy rate of the CBD zone in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City was so different. Ho Chi Minh City, they say quite stable, but while Hanoi, that the vacancy rate in CBD and non-CBD already reached to double digits at 10.8% in CBD and 14.6% in non-CBD. So our charts here just tell the history of the vacancy rate during 2019. 2019, the vacancy rate stayed quite stable. However, we have seen the significant increase in the quarter 2 of 2021 when the first hit of the COVID-19 to Vietnam. And the social distancing start in April 2020. And of course, right now that you can see that all the shopping malls in Ho Chi Minh City is closed, and it makes the vacancy rates that it's really suffering. And during this time that all the landlords already extend their support policy to all the tenants at the shopping center. They give it 100% rent freeze in June, and of course in May that they already reduced up to 15%. So the uncertain pandemic control and already postponed the recovery of the market. So as I mentioned, that the pandemic has changed the nature of the business and of course the sales. We have witnessed that M&A and the franchise activities in Vietnam. Recently, the SK Group already invests more than 400 million to Vincommerce, and Nova Service already tried to extend their portfolios and in F&B the franchise, and recently that they already acquired, or buy the master franchise of the Gloria Jeans from Australia and overall the Vietnam territory. They already signed the franchise agreements with Mango Tree from Thailand to open in Vietnam. And Masan already tied up with Phúc Long to expand their on the Phúc Long channels and the kiosks, in Winmart, in mostly Winmart, and recently that they already expand their brand presence to U.S. market. We have a witness that the franchise agreement has been signed that, from Taco Group to eMart, and recently Mekong Capitals already invest into Hướng Việt and in beauty segment as a beauty box. So, talking about the new entrant to Vietnam, comparing 3 years time, that of course 2019 that we have witnessed more brands and more international brands coming across the sector. However, in 2020, the number of the new entrants already got limited, and just some brands here, like across the food and beverage sector and fashion and accessory, already get limited. Most of the brands opened in 2020. They already got the signings and the confirmation since 2019, and of course they try to open the stores in 2021. Looking forward to the new expansions and the potential entrance to Vietnam across the sector, we still see here more food and beverage still entering Vietnam, and some fashion and accessory still entering, and a significant entrance that we have recorded here is the automotive segment. We are going to welcome Rolls-Royce coming into Ho Chi Minh City, Husqvarna and KTM, that motorbike brands really entering Ho Chi Minh City. Talking about the retailer expansions, so one of the keys to expansion strategy is a multi-channels, that multi-expansion. Most of the brands is trying, to review the expansion plans during 2020, and of course until 2021, they still have to review their expansion. We have a record here. Instead of the opening in the shopping center, they already expand their brand's presence to the residential podiums and the shop house. This is one of the strategy that most of the retail player in Vietnam is seen very well. The expansion is not only in the shopping, in the street shop, but they try to leverage shopping center, retail podiums, and the shop house. The charts here are showing the the in-sales growth of Vietnam across some segments here. In 2020, the retail sales growth already most of the declines in store sales. However, e-commerce, online retailing is increasing of the most sectors here. Of course, we got the nowadays that in the physical stores that the customers can have more interaction with the staff and with the products. However, the online shopper got convenience. Nowadays that the customer has easy access to coolest trends and the latest products just at their fingertip. However, that the online retail, the in-store retail sold is still, increasing for some sectors, especially when social distancing live later, because at the outer beauty product still need to have more interaction and more store experience. The growth at the projection of the online sales of Vietnam across the other sectors that by 2020, we got e-commerce, increased at 2 times by 2020, by 2025 comparing to 2020. And the apparels and fashion, increased at 3 times and 2020 comparing to 2025. So looking forward that the sector performance in 2021, look at here, the travel retail was the most affected during 2020 and even now until 2021. However, that travel retail that will be gradually increased and when the travel open later. However, domestic that will be more focused. Food and beverage and catering service that will be, the strongly get the faster recovery and sales grow due to the customer that will be reconnected when the people get back to work and also the gather at the events. And of course, general fashion that will be following when the people getting to work. While the outlook for the retail properties in Hanoi, Hanoi that will be welcome, 300,000 square meter in the pipeline from 2021 until 2024. In 2021, Hanoi that will be expecting to welcome 4 new projects like a FLC Twin Tower, the Jays by the end of this year, Vincom Mega Mall, Smart Cities, and also Hinode. By 2020 and 24, that we may witness, without delay, with another 6 projects is coming up in Hanoi. For Ho Chi Minh City, most of the project was already delayed in 2020. Actually, that Soka Mall planned to open last year. However, it is still postponed until end of 2021 or early 2022. The Central Premium also has the same story. Most of the project that they are dealing with the tenant now, that they have still waiting for the anchor tenant to confirm before other tenants is following. So by 2023, Ho Chi Minh City that we welcome 200,000 square meter to the market. And among that, there are 3 to 4 projects coming up in CBD zones. So what are the sectors that is able to boost our customers' confidence in the next coming time? So one of the issues that I should mention here is the vaccination process. In Vietnam, currently it's still it's very low compared to other countries in the region. We think that's one of the vaccinations, the process reached to 70 to 75% of the population get vaccinated. That can be helping, to push our confidence. And of course, it still depends on the government's pandemic controlling policy. What is the long-term priority of the almost sectors that is looking for that now? Is the first one is the physical stores that the consolidation is inevitable. And also, most of the retailers still increase and invest into the store experience because they want to have more the customers' experience and interaction, especially in the food and beverage and fast fashion. The omni-channel was real and driving in Vietnam, and online sales will be enhancements, and that is crucial. Then the customers' engagement that will be developed, and it's the time that for most of the brands that to create and more invest into the performance, like more interaction in TikToks or in Instagram. So this is my. I just finished my presentation. The next presentation that will be handling by Hieu Lê, the Director of Industrial Service and Logistics. Thank you.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hieu Lê. I'm the head of Industrial and Logistics Services at CBRE Vietnam. I'm very delighted to be here with you this morning. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the market overview, the opportunities, the key demand drivers, and also share with you the forecast of CBRE for the remainder of 2021 and onwards for the industrial and logistic estate in Vietnam. Let's take a first look at the market overview. So as you can see on the slide, that is the market supply volume for the industrial land in Vietnam. And on the right hand side, you can see the total leasable volume for the northern part of Vietnam and also for the southern part of Vietnam. So at this stage, by Q2 2021, the total leasable land of the northern part of Vietnam is about 17,900 hectares, and that is to include the Tier 1 provinces and also Tier 2 location. Similarly, in the southern part of Vietnam, the total leasable area for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 location is around 30,000 hectares. So if we count only the Tier 1 city in Hanoi and the surrounding provinces, and also in Ho Chi Minh City and the surrounding provinces, the leasable area can be less. The occupancy in both Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City and the surrounding provinces at this stage are quite healthy. Between 69% for Hanoi and then 75% for Ho Chi Minh City. But if we count the Tier 1 cities and location only, you can see that the occupancy is pretty higher, at about 78% to 79% for both locations, which is fairly mature. With regards to the ready-built factory and ready-built warehouse, in Hanoi, we haven't got any new supply for the facility, factory or warehouse in Q2 2021. So right now, the total supply for warehouse in Hanoi is still at approximately 1.1 million square meter. And for ready-built factory, it's about 2.3 million. Ho Chi Minh City, meanwhile, welcome more new supply to the market. And the new supply have got the volume increase. For a ready-built factory increased by 8%, for warehouse by 10%. So right now the total volume for the warehouse facility in Ho Chi Minh City is at about 3.5 million, moving from 3 million to 3.5 million within 1 quarter. For the ready-built factory, the total volume moved from less than 3 million, 2.9 million square meter to about 3.2 million, which is about 8% increase. And we are of the view that the supply for ready-built facility would come to the market in the next 2 years. This is the market performance for land and also for ready-built facilities. So on the left-hand side, that is the market performance and market rental for land. On the right-hand side, that is for warehouse and ready-built factory. So we saw a strong escalation for land rental between 2019 and 2020. However, between 2020 and the first half of 2021, we saw a moderate, escalation for land only, between 5% to 10% for prime location, and in some of very developed industrial park. For ready-built facility, the rental is quite stable. For ready-built factory, it can be vary from $4 to $4.5 per square meter per month. And for ready-built warehouse, for prime location, it can be as high as $5. And of course, for very good facility. So that could be the market overview. So what could be the key demand drivers for the industrial and logistics sector in Vietnam? So we talk a lot about the development of the infrastructure projects across Vietnam, right? So it's worth mention again that in the northern part of Vietnam, all of the highways that connect Hanoi and China border already been completed. The highway between Hanoi and the seaport in Hải Phòng completed about 5 to 6 years ago. And right now the government is investing more money to extend the connectivity highway from Hanoi and Hải Phòng to the southern part of Hanoi, which is Thái Bình, Vĩnh Phúc, or Hà Nam, and also to the second tier coastal cities such as Quảng Ninh. In the southern part of Vietnam, the good news is that the government now is more committed to invest more into the infrastructure in the southern part of Vietnam. So as you can see on the slide that as soon as the key fundamental infrastructure projects such as the Trung Lương Mỹ Thuận Highway, which connect Ho Chi Minh City to Mekong Delta, the Long Thành International Airport, and also the third terminal of Tân Sơn Nhất Airport, and also the Dầu Dây Phan Thiết Highway, which connect Ho Chi Minh City and Bình Thuận. If all of them can be completed in the next 2 to 3 years, and it will give more momentum for the industrial and logistics sector to further develop in these locations. The other driver would come from the expansion, the investment expansion of several, let's say, big anchor manufacturers that are already in Vietnam. But then, they have more confidence in Vietnam's development, so they grow their portfolio, their presence in Vietnam to support their business. So the active industry would include logistics, would include electronics. We have a good number of multinational companies that already announced their plan to invest further into the facility in Vietnam. Earlier this year, Intel announced their plan to invest up to $500 million into their facility to assemble and test the chipset in the Saigon High Tech Park in Ho Chi Minh City. Sparktronic, increased their investment in Bình Dương. ESR, announced their partnership program with BWID, for example. On the right-hand side, we also saw, the existing industry develop, but at the same time, the emerging industry are also developed in Vietnam as well. In the northern part of Vietnam, that could include automotive, packaging. In the southern part of Vietnam, that to include furniture and also medical equipment. The other important driver, we talked a lot in the past already, but it's still worth mentioning again. We are talking about production shipment from China to Southeast Asia. Due to the fact that the labor cost in China is rising, due to the fact that the land acquisition cost, the rental in China is rising, due to the fact that the regulation for industry in China is getting tightened, for example, or even to avoid the trade dispute between China and the US. And of course, we cannot miss the important fact that Vietnam government already signed as many bilateral trade agreements or multilateral trade agreement as possible, which encourage many manufacturers to set up their production in Vietnam or to expand the production in Vietnam to tap on the benefit of these agreements. So with those as the driver, if we dive deeper into the inquiries and transactions recorded by CBRE Vietnam, we're going to see that on the right-hand side, 67% of the inquiry that we received in the first half of 2021 is still for industrial land. But at the same time, 33% of the inquiries that we are handling is for logistic land. So logistic land is right now the most sought after property in the market. On the left-hand side, you can see the difference between the inquiries that we recorded in the first 6 months of 2021 and with the full 2020. So in a nutshell, there are more inquiries for ready-built facility, including warehouse and ready-built factory. Looking at the region, in the left-hand side, you can see that the net absorption for ready-built facility, including warehouse and ready-built factory, continue to be very positive. Driven by strong demand coming from e-commerce, coming from 3PL, coming from manufacturing, coming from retailers. And on the right-hand side, you can see the notable transaction in Vietnam in the first half of 2021 is in line with that trend. So several leases, several major transactions been completed in the first half of 2021 in Ho Chi Minh City, in Đồng Nai, in Bình Dương, in Thái Nguyên, in Hải Phòng, coming from 3PL, coming from retailer, coming from manufacturing, coming from e-commerce, for example. And with the demand drivers, with a closer look at the inquiries and transactions that already completed in the first half of 2021, so what could be the opportunity for the second half of 2021 and going forward? So CBRE is of the view that the opportunity will be with the second tier location. So in the northern part of Vietnam, the second tier location would include Thái Nguyên, Vĩnh Phúc, Nam Định, Quảng Ninh, for example. And in the southern part of Vietnam, the second tier provinces could include Tây Ninh, Bình Phước, Bình Thuận, Tiền Giang, and further to the Mekong Delta. And the driver behind these moving to the second tier location we mentioned earlier already, right? So number one driver would be the improvement of the infrastructure into this location. The second driver would be the available land bank, big land bank in this location, which allow occupier and developer, to acquire big land bank to develop, their presence. And what is more important is that if you take a look at the chart on the right-hand side, you can see the difference, substantial difference between the land rental between tier 1 location and tier 2 location. Sometimes can be 50%, sometimes can be 2 times or 3 times different, which can be translated into a very good saving for occupier and developer, and to make a decision to move into the second tier location. And we also see more new developers are eyeing on the market. A variety of them would come from local developer, big developer that are already established in the other sector, such as Phát, such as Novaland, such as Thành Công, such as Vingroup, for example, and now they decided to move into the industrial sector. And also, many new developers from APAC and also from the other parts of the world are also decided to enter the market. We mentioned earlier this year that Logos, SLP, we mentioned earlier ESR, and we also welcome JD.com to enter the market as well. So for ready-built facility and warehouse, given the land in prime location is getting very, very limited, we can see that the developers, they are developing more multi-level ready-built facility ranging between 2 level to 6 level for both warehouse and for ready-built factory. And in order to meet the rising requirement from retailer, from e-commerce, the specification of these facilities have been improved significantly over the last 5 years to make them in line with international standard. So with that, we would like to wrap up, our presentation on the industrial and logistics sector with a few key things for you to take away. So number one, despite the fourth wave and COVID, which is now raging, especially in Ho Chi Minh City and the southern part of Vietnam, we are of the view that the market sentiment for this sector remain very upbeat. We have seen the government has done a very good job, to keep the supply chain uninterrupted, and they're also ramping up the vaccination with priority given to local workers. So those are the right step in the right direction, which can keep the sector, in good shape, and then driven by strong demand that we mentioned earlier from local expansion, from new entry, from several new players into the market. The second thing is that we're going to welcome more new supply to the market, especially in the next 2 years for both industrial land and also for ready-built facility, for warehouse, for ready-built factory. And last but not least, as we mentioned earlier, given the land in prime location is getting very, very limited, we can see that M&A or merger and acquisition can become a popular platform for many players to enter the market. So with that, we would like to wrap up our presentation. Thank you very much for your listening. And now we would like to introduce our colleague, Kiệt Võ, who is the Director for Residential Project Marketing, to share with you our view on the residential sector. Thank you.
Thank you anh Hiếu. Phần trình bày vừa rồi, tôi sẽ xin phép
Thank you, Mr. Hiếu. I'd like to continue with my presentation on residential market. One of the points that we have witnessed
thảo luận rất nhiều trong thời gian vừa qua
discussing
là dịch bệnh Covid.
That is COVID-19.
Dịch bệnh Covid trong thời gian vừa qua đã ảnh hưởng khá là nhiều từ năm 2020
time since 2020 to now. COVID-19 has got a good impact on us. And in the previous presentations, we saw that there have been impacts on all sectors of real estate. And for residential market, it is not an exception. Since 2020 to now, we can see that COVID has changed the nature of residential sales.
Thì nếu như mà so sánh
if we have a comparison,
6 tháng đầu năm của năm 2020,
the first half of 2020 and first half of 2021. First half of 2020 was the time when the pandemic just started, and now we have witnessed more than 18 months living together with the pandemic. And there have been a lot of changes in business activities, investment, and also habits of investors. Take a look at the first half of 2020 when the pandemic just started. The developers and investors
vì dịch
at
bệnh mới
that
xuất
time
hiện
because
nên
the
thành ra
pandemic
nên mọi người đều ở trong một
was
trạng thái
new, so
chúng ta
everyone
gọi là wait and see, tức
was
là
in the
để xem
wait
rằng
and
là
see
sự
mode.
diễn biến của dịch bệnh sẽ như thế nào, nó sẽ ảnh hưởng lâu dài hay không. Tuy nhiên là sau 18
We
tháng
needed
chúng ta
to
phải sống chung
see
với dịch bệnh
the new
thì hầu
developments
như
of
cái
the
thói
pandemic.
quen cũng
However,
như rằng là
after 18
cái
months,
hoạt động kinh doanh của
the
các chủ đầu
habits
tư
and the
cũng đã có những cái sự thay đổi
operations
bằng những cái chính
of
sách kinh
developers
doanh mới,
have
bằng những
changed.
cái
They have got new sales
bằng những
policies.
cái sản phẩm mới, những
There
cái đặc
are
tính mới
new product
giúp
features,
cho cái
and
đa
these
dạng hóa hơn
have
cái
helped
phương
to
thức kinh doanh,
diversify
giúp cho
their
các nhà
modes
chủ đầu tư
of
có thể
business
vẫn
and
tiếp tục
help
có
the
thể
developers to continue
duy trì cũng như là đẩy mạnh cái
to
hoạt động kinh doanh
maintain
của mình.
and even promote
Riêng về đối với
their
các nhà đầu tư thì
activities.
chúng ta cũng thấy rằng là
And for
họ đã
investors,
dần dần chấp nhận một cái
buyers,
việc rằng là
they
một
have
cái
gradually
hình bình thường mới
accepted the
khi mà
new
phải duy
normalcy
trì được cái việc là
when they
làm
need
việc tại
to
nhà, cũng
work
như
from
rằng là
home.
đã suy nghĩ đến cái việc
They
làm sao để
also
đầu tư
thought
và
about how
làm sao
to
để có thể duy trì được
retain
cái hoạt động đầu tư của mình.
their investment
Thì trong
activities.
thời gian vừa rồi năm 2020 đến thời điểm hiện
And
tại thì
since
chúng ta thấy đặc biệt đối với thị
2020 to
trường nhà
now,
ở
especially
thì
for
nhu
residential
cầu
market,
của lượng khách hàng
the
là khách
demand
hàng
of customers
là người Việt Nam, là khách
who
hàng địa
are
phương,
local buyers
nó chiếm cái tỷ trọng cao hơn rất là nhiều
accounted
so với
for a
cái nhu
greater
cầu
percentage
đầu tư
compared
của khách hàng quốc
to
tế.
the
Bởi
demand
vì chúng ta thấy rõ ràng là
of
khách hàng quốc tế,
the
những các nhà đầu tư
international
nước
buyers,
ngoài hiện tại là không thể nào vào Việt
because
Nam,
the
và
international
cái hoạt
buyers,
động
they
đầu
cannot
tư
enter
nó cũng
Vietnam
rất là
now,
hạn chế.
and
Chính vì
so
vậy,
their investment has been
nhìn nhận
limited.
thẳng vào vấn đề, chúng ta thấy rằng
So
là cái nhu cầu đầu tư của khách hàng
the demand
nội
of
địa hiện tại
customers,
đang là chiếm tỷ
local
trọng cao hơn rất
customers,
nhiều,
is
và
now
nó chiếm tỷ
accounting
trọng
for
chính trong
the
cái
main
nhu cầu
part
chung
in
về bất động sản nhà
the
ở.
overall demand
Nhìn
for
về phía con
residential
số thì chúng ta sẽ thấy rất
market.
rõ có những cái
And
sự
you
thay
can
đổi
see the
so với những cái
changes
thời điểm của năm 2020.
compared to 2020.
Nhìn vào con số của năm 2021,
If
chúng
we
ta thấy
look
là
at
điều gì?
2021
Nếu như tại thị trường thành phố Hồ Chí Minh,
in Ho Chi Minh
về
City,
mảng căn hộ thì
for
xét về tổng nguồn
apartment,
cung hiện tại
the
vẫn ghi
total
nhận con số
supply
giảm khoảng 9% so với
is
là cùng
a
thời điểm của năm
9%
2020.
decrease in the
Dừng ở
same
mức
period
tổng số lượng
2020,
sản phẩm chào bán dừng
and
ở mức
the
khoảng hơn
total
5.800 căn.
number of
Riêng ở thị trường Hà Nội thì nó lại chúng
sold
ta thấy một cái
units,
chiều hướng
it also,
khác
there
nữa,
is an
khác hơn
increase.
một tí xíu so với thành phố Hồ Chí Minh, khi mà
A new
Hà
launch,
Nội lại duy
for the
trì
new
được
launch,
một cái
it is
ngưỡng tăng khoảng 10% so với cùng
9%
thời điểm năm ngoái
decrease in Ho Chi Minh
và
City,
đạt
but
ngưỡng
in
gần
Hanoi
8.000
it is
căn
a
hộ
different
được chào bán
story.
trong đầu năm
About
6
almost
tháng đầu năm
8,000 units
2021,
have been
và cho
launched
thấy rằng
for the
là
first half
cái
of
thị trường
2021,
Hà Nội có
equal
vẻ đã
to
vượt
a
trội so
10%
với thành phố Hồ Chí
year
Minh
on year.
về mảng nguồn
So
cung.
I think that Hanoi has
Xét về cái số
exceeded
lượng sản phẩm chào bán
Ho
thành
Chi Minh
công,
City
cả hai thị
in
trường Hà Nội
terms
và thành
of
phố Hồ Chí
new
Minh
launch.
vẫn ghi nhận số lượng
For the
chào
number
bán
of
thành công rất
sold units,
cao.
both
Đều
places
tăng khoảng từ
reported
20 đến
high
28%
increase
so với thời điểm
in
về năm
number
ngoái.
of
Và
sold
chúng ta
units,
nếu mà
from
nhìn vào cái con số
28%
thì chúng ta
of
thấy
year
rằng
on
là
year increase.
cả hai thị trường thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và
And
Hà
both
Nội
markets, Ho Chi
đều
Minh
ghi
City
nhận số
and
lượng
Hanoi,
căn hộ chào bán
recorded
thành công cao hơn số lượng chào
higher
bán mới trong
number
6 tháng đầu năm.
of sold
Và
units
nếu
compared to the new
và con
launch.
số này và cái điều này
And
nó lại càng chứng minh một cách rõ
this
ràng hơn khi mà chúng ta
also
nhìn vào
proved,
cái
is
là
proved
tỷ lệ
when
hấp
we
thụ
look at
của
the
cả hai thị trường.
absorption rate of
Thì
both
đối với
markets.
cả hai thị trường đều ghi nhận cái
For
tỷ
both
lệ tăng
cities,
về cái hiệu suất
there have
kinh doanh cũng như
been
là cái
increase
tỷ lệ chào bán thành
in
công.
the
Ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
absorption
duy
rate
trì
and
ở mức
selling
là 80%,
price.
tức là
In the Ho Chi
80%
Minh
số lượng
City,
sản phẩm chào bán
80%
mới
of the
đều
new
kinh
launch
doanh thành công trong những bán đầu
have
tiên.
been absorbed
Ở Hà Nội ghi
in
nhận con số
the
khoảng 47%.
sale,
Thì giữa hai con
and
số
in
80
Hanoi it is
47 chúng ta cũng sẽ
47%.
nhìn thấy rõ
Of course,
về
between
cái đặc
80
thù
and
khác biệt
47, we can
giữa
see
Hà Nội và thành phố Hồ Chí Minh.
differences between
Đối
Ho
với
Chi
mảng
Minh
căn
City
hộ,
and
rõ ràng
Hanoi
chúng ta thấy
for
là
apartments.
cái tỷ trọng cũng như là cái tỷ
The
lệ chào bán thành
proportion
công của thành phố Hồ Chí
and
Minh luôn nằm
the
ở mức rất là cao. Trong khi ở Hà Nội thì duy trì ở mức khoảng
selling rate
50% so với lại số lượng
is high
mở bán.
in Ho Chi Minh City, while in Hanoi it is
Nói về cái
50% of the
mức
new
giá
launch.
thì
Talking about the
có lẽ giá
average
bán đối
selling
với mảng căn
price,
hộ là cái điều mà trong thời
the
gian vừa qua
price
chúng ta
for
cũng
apartments
đã thấy được một
recently,
có rất là nhiều giấy mực
there
đã
have
nói về điều
been
này.
a lot of
Tức là ngay
discussions
cả trong
on
tình
this
hình dịch
topic,
bệnh diễn ra kéo
even during
dài
the
trong suốt một thời gian suốt
long-lasting
năm
pandemic
2020 cũng như là
for
kéo
the
dài
whole
qua đến năm
2020
2021 như vậy.
until now,
Nhưng
2021.
mức giá chung
But
của cả hai
the
thị trường thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
average
và Hà Nội
selling price
đều ghi nhận
of
mức
both
tăng.
Ho Chi Minh City
Thậm chí
and
ở thành phố Hồ
Hanoi
Chí Minh,
have
mức giá trung
increased.
bình của các
In Ho Chi Minh
căn hộ
City,
đã tăng
the
hơn 16%.
selling prices has
Điều này cho thấy
increased
rằng là
by more than
mặc dù ngay
16%.
cả trong cái
So
tình
even
hình dịch
though
bệnh kéo dài như vậy,
despite
việc
the
kinh doanh
pandemic,
việc triển khai mở bán của các dự án
the
cũng gặp rất là nhiều khó khăn.
selling
Các nhà đầu tư
of
cũng gặp
apartments
rất là
have
nhiều vấn đề về tài
witnessed
chính.
difficulties. However, for the whole market, we can still see the increasing trend of the selling price.
Có lẽ cái cụm từ mà làm việc tại nhà, work from home,
And I think that now the term work from home,
có lẽ nếu như trước đây nó là một cái khái niệm khá là mới, thì
was new earlier,
trong suốt khoảng
but
thời gian từ năm 2020 tới nay,
since 2020 to now,
nó đã trở nên khá là quen thuộc
has
đối với hầu
become
hết
more familiar
chúng ta rồi.
to almost all of us.
Và trên màn hình đây là một cái báo cáo mà
And
CBRE
on the screen, it is a report that CBRE has gathered information on the trends work from home and the impact, because the lasting pandemic have made most companies to select work from home to support their maintenance of business while ensuring safety for their staff. And according to CBRE survey, during the pandemic, about 84% of the respondents answered that they prefer to work from home so that they can ensure their safety. And because of this preference,
cái xu hướng như vậy nó đã cũng ảnh hưởng rất nhiều.
And this trend has got a lot of impact on office buildings for rent.
Chúng ta cũng đã thấy rất là rõ cái sự ảnh hưởng đấy. Nhưng ngay cả với mảng nhà ở cũng chịu cái sự ảnh hưởng này. Bởi vì cái việc mà chúng ta duy trì thời gian làm việc tại nhà lâu như vậy nó cũng sẽ ảnh hưởng đến cái xu hướng lựa chọn cũng như là selection của căn hộ như thế nào để cho phù hợp với cái làm việc tại nhà cho phù hợp và hiệu quả hơn. Hiện tại rất là nhiều người khi mà làm tại nhà lâu
a lot of people when working from
thì họ đã
home
bắt đầu chú ý đến việc
pay more attention
hạn chế cũng như là tiết kiệm năng lượng để
more energy efficient in order to reduce the utility bill.
Thì đây cũng là những cái xu hướng mới.
And these are the new trends. And we think that in the coming time, it will be the trends that will influence the investment and design of new products. Coming back to the residential market, if we involve in this market, we know that infrastructure is one of the most important key that influence on the real estate markets in general and residential areas in particular. It is clearly seen in Hanoi.
Thị trường Hà Nội trong thời gian vừa qua
because in Hanoi recently,
Hà Nội có một cái lợi thế rất lớn.
They have a good advantage in terms of infrastructure with the roads connecting national roads and expressways, and this creates the good linking from Hanoi to other northern provinces, and the completion of ring roads in Hanoi promoted the mobility of vehicles, and so townships, especially the big ones, more than 70 hectares, have appeared more in Hanoi, and this shows that these townships will emerge and follow along the new infrastructures, and this synergy creates an advantage, because when the townships can leverage the connectivity from the new expressways, it will increase the utility for their residents and also for the investment details. And besides, it also helps to reduce the pressure for the inner city in Hanoi. If we look at another aspect into Ho Chi Minh City, though Ho Chi Minh City and the southern region, there are a lot of infrastructure projects, but most of infrastructure projects in the south have not been completed or
phải tạm dừng hoặc là phải có tiến độ triển khai rất là chậm trong một thời gian rất là dài.
For a long
Điều này
time.
thật sự nó cũng đã là một nó tạo nên một cái đặc điểm cho cái thị trường bất động sản, đặc biệt bất động sản nhà ở cho khu vực phía Nam.
The residential real estate market in the south. If we compare between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, the number of townships and the density of townships in the south is less dense and less evenly distributed if you compare to Hanoi. Recently, we can see this trend very clearly in the south, and there have been a lot of large townships, but they are far from the city centers or in the nearby provinces. Bình Dương, Long An, Đồng Nai. We take a further look here. Though these townships are far, but their connectivity still challenging because infrastructure development in Vietnam, in the south, has not been
đây là biểu đồ để thống kê về số lượng nguồn cung của hai thị trường Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và Hà Nội.
Supply of the residential market in Ho Chi Minh and in Hanoi. On the left, it is the number of new launch supply of condominium quarter 2 of Ho Chi Minh in a comparison with Q1 of 2021. In Ho Chi Minh City, it has increased 1.3 times compared to the previous quarter. It is the good news. Quarter 1, it was very stagnant, but in quarter 2, the new launch has increased. And if we look further here, we can recognize that almost all, or 70%, of the new launch supply in Ho Chi Minh City focused on mid-end.
Điều này, cái đặc tính này nó khá là khác biệt so với những thời điểm, đặc biệt là những thời điểm mà của cuối năm 2020,
end of 2020.
Tỷ trọng phần lớn các sản phẩm
At that time, most of the new launch were high-end.
Đây là một cái sự thay đổi mà tôi nghĩ
and it is a change that I think
tại Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
it is worth noticing in Ho Chi Minh City. There is a new characteristic because most of high-end projects in Ho Chi Minh City were distributed mainly to the east, but the east of Ho Chi Minh City recently has witnessed challenges in launching new projects, and the progress have been delayed due to the legal procedures and work progress. And there have been mid-end projects in the south and the west of the city, and it has had that impact on investors' demand. And looking at the total supply of 2021, compared with the last 6 months, it is a 9% decrease. But in Hanoi, it is a different story. The number of quarter 2, if you compare with quarter 1, it is 20% decrease.
Tuy nhiên tổng số lượng nguồn cung của đầu năm, 6 tháng đầu năm 2021 lại cao hơn số lượng tổng nguồn cung của 6 tháng đầu năm 2020, 20%, và tỷ trọng chung mà chiếm tỷ trọng chính của thị trường Hà Nội vẫn nằm ở phân khúc mid-end.
The main contribution comes from mid-end.
Cái xu hướng chung của thị trường Hà Nội.
Shows the general trend of Hanoi.
Đây là cái biểu đồ phân bổ về các cái dự án.
That is the map of
ở thị trường Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
projects
và thị trường Hà Nội.
In Hanoi and in Ho Chi Minh City.
Thay đổi ở Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh là
there has been a change in Ho Chi Minh.
Nếu như hầu hết các nguồn cung ở các quý trước đều tập trung ở khu Đông.
Most of the supply in the previous quarter was in the east, but now
lại xuất hiện nhiều các cái dự án
there have been new projects, big projects in the west and in the south and in the midterm segment.
các sản phẩm đã
And
chi
I
phối
think that
phần lớn nguồn
these
cung
are the
của
projects
thời gian
that contribute
của quý 2 vừa rồi.
mostly to the supply in quarter
Khu
2.
Đông hiện tại chỉ chiếm khoảng 22%
The East
so với
now
nguồn cung mới,
is contributing
trong khi
to
những cái khu vực khác
22%
của khu vực
of
Tây
the
và khu vực phía
new
Nam
launch
chiếm cái tỷ
supply,
trọng khá là
while
cao.
the West and the South
Bên thị trường
contributed
Hà Nội thì
more.
có một cái sự quân
In
bình giữa khu
Hanoi,
vực phía Tây
there
và
is
khu vực phía Đông, đặc biệt là khu
similarity
vực
between the
bờ
East
đông
and
của
the
sông
West,
Hồng. Sau khi
especially
chính phủ
the
đã có
East
những
of
cái thông tin
Red
về những
River
vấn
after
đề
the government
về
has
việc
got information on
đầu tư và mở rộng
investment
khu vực phía đông bờ sông
to
Hồng.
expand
Thì
the east
hiện tại
of
chúng ta nhận thấy rằng là khu vực phía Tây và khu vực phía đông của Hà
the
Nội
East and the
đều
West
ở
now
mức cái số lượng sản phẩm chào bán ra đều
a similar
đạt ở mức rất là cao,
new launch
chiếm
supply,
tương ứng là 39% cho mỗi
39%.
khu vực, và đây là cái tỷ trọng chính của các
that
khu vực.
is, these are the main contributions
Phát triển
for Hanoi,
mới
and I think
cho
that
thị trường
this
Hà
is
Nội
a new
khi
trend
mà kết
for
hợp với
development
một
of
cái hệ
Hanoi
thống kết hợp
when
giao thông cũng như là hạ tầng về các
we
tuyến đường
have
cao tốc được
good
phát triển rất là bài
combination
bản và đồng bộ
and the
như
synergy
hiện tại.
from different infrastructures in transportation.
Chúng ta sẽ đi vào tiếp theo là cái phần
And
về giá
now
bán, để
we
thấy
will
rằng
move
là
to
trong thời gian qua
the selling
cái sự thay
price,
đổi cũng như sự biến
and we
động
will
về giá
see
bán của thị
the
trường như thế
change
nào
in the selling price of the market recently
đối với mức giá ở thị trường sơ cấp
for
và
the
thị trường thứ cấp ở các phân khúc.
primary and the secondary
Thì đây là cái
market
thống kê của
prices.
thị trường Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
It
và
is
Hà
the
Nội ở các cái
statistics
phân khúc.
for Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh
Thì về mức giá
in
của các phân
different
khúc
segments.
căn hộ thì ở đối với thị trường Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh á, cái
In Ho
phân
Chi
khúc
Minh,
mà có cái
the
sự biến động cũng như là cái sự tăng giá
most
cao nhất là
fluctuating
ở phân khúc hạng sang.
market
Bởi
is
vì trong
in
thời gian vừa
luxury
qua chúng ta
segment,
được biết
because
rằng là
recently
ở Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh đã xuất
we have
hiện
seen that in Ho Chi Minh City
những cái chủng loại căn hộ,
there have
đặc biệt là những
been
căn hộ thương hiệu, căn hộ
the
branded
branded
residence có mức giá
residence,
đã vượt ngưỡng 18.000
and the
đô một mét
price
vuông.
has
Thì chính vì
exceeded
điều này nó tạo nên
$18,000
một cái xu
per
hướng
meter
tăng
square,
giá cho cái phân
and
khúc
this
này.
has
Và hiện theo thống kê của
led to
CBRE
the increase in the
phân
selling
khúc
price. According
các
to
hạng sang tại
CBRE,
Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh,
a
đối
luxury
với căn
segment
hộ đã tăng hơn khoảng 9,2%
for Ho Chi Minh City
so
has
với cùng kỳ
increased
của thời điểm năm trước.
by
Ở các phân khúc
9.2%
khác thì
year on
cũng đều
year.
ghi nhận những mức
For
tăng.
other segments,
Riêng phân
we
khúc
also recorded
cao cấp, phân khúc high-end
increase. For
thì
high
chỉ ghi
end,
nhận tăng khoảng
it was only
0,4% so với thời điểm cùng kỳ của
0.4%
năm trước.
year on year
Điều
increase.
này cũng giải thích rằng là bởi vì
And
cái
this
số
is
lượng nguồn cung
explained
trong cái quý vừa
because
rồi không
the
nhiều,
supply
nên cái tỷ
in
trọng
the
và
last
mức
quarter
giá
is
tăng
not too
không đánh
large,
giá cao.
so
Chứ riêng về
the
cái phân khúc tầm
increase
trung
is
thì
not
do cái
high.
nguồn cung nó lại
But
chiếm
for
cái
the
tỷ
mid
trọng cao,
end,
nên thành ra so sánh
with
về cái mức độ
the
tăng giá
abundant
thì
supply,
phân khúc tầm trung Thành phố Hồ Chí
so
Minh lại tăng lên 8,3%.
the price has
Riêng về cái
increased
phân
by
khúc căn hộ
8.3%
bình dân
year on
thì
year.
gần
And
như
for affordable,
không có một cái nguồn cung mới nào
almost no
trong suốt
new supply
6 tháng vừa rồi.
for the last 6 months.
Nó cũng kéo dài cái thời gian mà
And it has
phân khúc này gần như không có nguồn cung. Mức giá ghi
extended
nhận sự
the
thay đổi
time,
chủ yếu là ở các cái dự
the
án
duration
cũ,
for
chủ yếu là các cái giao
stabilization,
dịch của các dự án cũ.
and most of the transactions are in
Đối với thị trường Hà Nội
existing
thì
projects.
rõ
Moving
ràng
to
chúng ta
Hanoi,
nhận thấy cái sự chi phối rất là mạnh cũng như
you can
là
see
chiếm tỷ trọng
the
cao
great
nhất là ở phân khúc
influence
tầm trung.
and
Và
the
phân khúc
contribution
này
from the
cũng
mid-end
ghi nhận
segment,
được cái mức tăng khá là
and
cao. Ở mức
this
là
also
6,7%.
recorded high increase
Riêng ở
by
phân khúc căn hộ
6.7%.
bình dân ở thị
For
trường Hà Nội cũng ghi
affordable
nhận được cái mức
in
tăng
Hanoi,
khá là cao, là
also
9,1%. Tuy nhiên thì
high increase
xét về
by
cái tỷ lệ số
9.1%.
lượng căn hộ được chào bán
But
tại
if
phân khúc
we
này
look
thì
at
tương đối thấp
the
nếu mà so
new
sánh với lại căn hộ
launch,
tầm trung.
this is
Ở hầu hết các phân khúc
smaller
thì cả
than
phân khúc
mid-end.
high-end thì cũng đã ghi nhận cái
High end
mức giá là tăng.
increased the
Riêng
price
phân
by
khúc hạng sang
2.2%,
thì đối
but
với
for
CB,
luxury,
theo CB ghi nhận rằng thì đối với phân khúc hạng
according
sang
to
tại thị trường Hà
CBRE,
Nội trong thời
the
gian vừa qua
luxury
chưa
market
xuất
in
hiện các cái
Hanoi
dự án mới. Và cái mức giá
have
này
not
chủ yếu ghi nhận
recorded
ở
new
một số các
entrants,
cái dự án
and
với
we
quy mô
only have
khá là nhỏ được
some
ghi nhận của thời gian trước đây,
small
và cũng
projects
chưa ghi
that
nhận
have
thấy có
been
sự biến động giá
existed
nhiều
already, and there
gọi
haven't
là
been
xuất hiện
great
ở phân khúc hạng
fluctuations
sang này.
of price in luxury segment.
Đối với cái mảng nhà phố biệt thự và những cái sản
For
phẩm gắn liền với đất,
townhouse, villa,
bao gồm nhà phố biệt thự và nhà phố thương mại, thì
and
cả hai thị
shophouse,
trường đều ghi nhận được cái mức tỷ lệ tăng giá
in
khá
both
là cao. Tại thị trường Thành phố
markets,
Hồ Chí
we
Minh
have
thì cái
recorded
tỷ trọng mà tăng cao nhất
new
nằm ở phân
price
khúc nhà
increase.
phố.
In
Và bởi
Ho Chi
vì
Minh
trong
City,
thời gian qua chúng tôi ghi
the
nhận thấy
biggest
rằng là
increase is
số
in
lượng sản phẩm nhà
townhouse
phố
because
chào
number
bán
of
khá là
townhouse
tốt, và điều này đã ghi
launching
nhận cái sự
has
tăng
been
giá
very
cao
good,
ở thị
and
trường
it
này.
has recorded new
Riêng ở thị trường Hà
increase.
Nội
But
thì phải
in Hanoi,
một điều cũng phải cảm ơn rằng là số
one
lượng
thing
các
we
cái dự
need
án,
to
các cái quy mô
appreciate is
khu đô
that
thị,
the
các dự
number
án, các cái
of
sản
the
phẩm thuộc các
residential
dự án
areas
khu đô thị quy mô lớn
urban
tại Hà
areas
Nội
of large
khá là nhiều.
scale in Hanoi is
nó giúp
large,
tăng cái nguồn
and it
cung
has increased the
cho thị
supply
trường của
for the market
thị trường Hà Nội trong một thời gian khá là dài.
in
Chính vì
a
vậy
long time.
cái tỷ trọng mà
And that is
giá
why
tăng cho cái việc giao dịch
the
lại
price
ở cái phân khúc,
increase
ở
for
các cái
the
sản phẩm giao
secondary
dịch thứ cấp
price
nó cũng ghi nhận ở mức tăng và
has
tăng khá
also
là đồng đều
increased,
ở các phân khúc,
and most equally
tương ứng là
in
khoảng
different
11% đối với lại
sectors.
nhà phố thương
11%
mại,
for shop house,
12% đối với mảng biệt thự
12%
và mảng nhà phố
for
cũng ghi nhận
villa,
tăng
and
14%. Đây là cái
14%
mức giá
for
mà chúng tôi ghi
townhouse.
nhận về
And we think that
các giao dịch ở thị trường thứ cấp.
these are the
Và với cái xu hướng
statistics
tăng
that we
giá
recorded
của thị
for
trường
secondary
chung, đặc biệt là
market.
thị trường cái mảng căn hộ
Now
trong thời
for
gian qua tại
the
Hồ
apartment
Chí Minh lẫn thị trường Hà Nội,
market
thì
in
nếu
both
so
Hanoi
sánh
and Ho
với
Chi
lại
Minh
các cái
City,
khu vực và
if
các cái
we
thị trường
compare them
ở các cái thành phố lớn tại khu vực
with
Đông Nam Á, thì
large
chúng ta
cities in
thấy là cái xu hướng tăng
Southeast
giá này
Asia,
nó đã làm cho
this
giá
price
của
increase
hai thị trường chính là
trend
thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và Hà Nội đã tăng rất là cao
has
và nó nằm ở vị trí
increased
khá là tiệm
sharply
cận so với lại các
and
cái thị trường
is
lớn như là
almost
Bangkok,
approaching new the big
hay là ở
markets
Jakarta.
like
Thậm chí mức
Bangkok
giá
or
mà ghi
Jakarta.
nhận trung bình ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và
The
Hà Nội
average
thậm chí
price
hiện tại đã
in
vượt
Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh
qua
is
Jakarta
even higher
và
than
đã gần
Jakarta
tiệm cận với lại mức
and
giá
is
tại thị trường
approaching
Bangkok.
Bangkok.
Thì đó là mức giá chung mà chúng ta ghi nhận.
Those are the
Tuy nhiên,
average
nếu mà nhìn vào một
price
số các dự
that
án,
have
thậm chí
been
là một số
recorded.
các dự
If we
án
look
chào
at
bán gần đây ở cái phân
some
khúc hạng sang,
projects,
thì rõ
especially
ràng
recent
các cái mức
projects in
giá
luxury
chào bán ghi nhận
segments,
từ
the
hơn 10, từ
asking
15 đến
price
18.000 đô
from
một mét vuông,
15
hiện
to
tại
$18,000 per
của cái
square
dự án
meter
này
of
thậm
these
chí nó còn
projects
cao hơn rất nhiều so với một
is
số cái dự
even
án
much
nổi bật
higher
tại thị trường
than
Bangkok.
the
Và điều này
key
cho thấy rằng
projects
là
in
cái xu
Bangkok.
hướng phát triển
This shows
các cái
the
phân khúc, đặc biệt là phân
development
khúc hạng
trend
sang ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
of Hanoi
đang được
and
các
Ho
chủ
Chi
đầu
Minh
tư
City
tập trung
has
và
been
sắp tới đây chúng tôi nghĩ
recognized
rằng là
by
sắp tới đây
investors,
nó sẽ có những
and
thậm chí nó sẽ có những cái dự
we
án
think
nó tạo
that
nên cái sự đột biến giá
in the
thậm chí còn
coming
cao
time
hơn các dự án
there will
hiện tại.
be new projects with very high price.
Đây là cái thống kê về cái biểu đồ tăng giá
And these are the
của các
charts
dự án căn hộ tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
of
ở thị
the
trường thứ cấp
price
mà chúng tôi ghi nhận được
in
trong
secondary
thời gian qua.
price of
Thì
Ho Chi
nếu
Minh
như các
City
cái thống kê trước
condominium
đây ở các cái thời điểm trước
in
đây
the previous
thì hầu hết các
statistics
cái
reports
dự án chúng tôi ghi nhận thì
in
hầu hết
most
các
of
cái dự
the
án đều ghi
projects
nhận cái mức giá chào bán lại
we
đều tăng
recorded
hầu hết.
the
Tuy nhiên thì
increased
trong thời gian quý 2
secondary
vừa rồi, khi
price.
mà đội ngũ nghiên cứu thị
However,
trường của CBRE cũng đã có một sự khảo sát thì thấy rằng là
survey of the
đã
market,
có cái sự điều chỉnh
there have
về
been
cái mức giá bán
adjustments
lại ở một số các cái dự
in
án,
the secondary
đặc biệt là một cái số
price
dự
in
án trước
some
đây
projects.
có mức giá chào bán lại khá là cao.
In
Khách
the
hàng
previously, some projects had high secondary asking price, but in Q2 of 2021, there have been
ở
adjustments.
đây thì chúng ta thấy rằng là qua cái điều đó chúng ta thấy rằng là
So we can
một thời
see
gian
that
dài dịch bệnh cũng như rằng là cái tình hình chung của thị
pandemic
trường cũng như là
and
kinh
the
tế
general
chung
performance
thì
of
làm
the
cho các
economy
nhà
and
đầu
the
tư,
market
đặc biệt là các
has
cái
made
nhà đầu
investors,
tư
especially
trước đây đã mua số lượng nhiều ở một số các dự án
investors that have
thì họ đã bắt đầu
got
có
a large
hiện tượng là
quantity
giảm cái kỳ vọng của mình về mức độ tăng
apartments
giá.
have
Tức là trước đây nếu mà họ
reduced
chào
their
bán ở mức
expectation
khá là cao
for price
thì
growth.
đến thời điểm hiện tại họ
Earlier,
bắt đầu có
they
sự điều
asked
chỉnh để giảm
for
ở một
high
số
price,
các cái
but
dự án.
now they have
Nên nếu mà theo
reduced
thống kê
their
chúng ta thấy rằng
asking
là
price.
riêng về cái mức giá thị trường thứ cấp đối với
So,
mảng căn hộ đã có một
regarding
sự
the
điều chỉnh
secondary price in
nhất định ở một số
secondary
các cái dự
market,
án
there have
cho
been
thấy cái sự điều
adjustment
chỉnh về kỳ vọng của các nhà đầu tư.
in the
Tuy nhiên
price
cái mức
of
điều
some
chỉnh này
projects.
hầu
However,
hết
this
cũng chỉ
adjustment
xuất hiện ở một vài dự án
is shown only
và
in some
các cái giá
projects,
chào bán lại thì hầu hết cũng
and
đứng
secondary
cao hơn so với
price
mức giá chào bán
was
trước đây
still higher than
khi mà thời
the
điểm ở thị trường sơ cấp.
primary price.
Riêng thị trường Hà Nội thì
In
bức tranh
Hanoi,
thì có vẻ nó khả quan hơn
the
khi hầu hết
increase
các
is
dự
more
án
positive
đều ghi nhận
because
cái
most
sự
in most
tăng
of
giá
the
ở hầu
projects
hết
we
các cái dự án
recorded
ở thị
the
trường
increase in the
thứ cấp.
price
Thì các
in
cái cho
secondary
thấy rằng là
market.
thị trường Hà Nội nó có
This
hơn
shows
về mặt quản
that
lý
in
cũng như
Hanoi
rằng
there
là
is a
cái yếu
greater
tố gia
stability
tăng giá trị
in
cái
the
sản phẩm của
confidence,
Hà Nội tương đối
and
là tốt hơn so
we
với thành phố Hồ Chí Minh.
have increase in the value
Và đây là
in
cái
Hanoi market.
thống kê về cái
And
hiệu suất sinh lời
these are
từ việc giá
the
thuê
rental
của
yields
căn hộ tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và Hà Nội.
from
Thì
condominium in
rõ ràng
Hanoi
chúng ta
and Ho
cũng
Chi
nhìn
Minh.
nhận thấy một điều rằng là khi mà dịch
We
bệnh
can
kéo
see
dài như vậy,
that with prolonged
đặc biệt
pandemic,
cái đối tượng là những người nước ngoài qua đây làm việc sinh
expats
sống
and
cũng như là du
foreigners
lịch
demand
Nam
have
giảm rất là
reduced
mạnh.
sharply,
Nó tác động
and
tiêu cực
this
lên
has
trên
negatively influenced
thị trường cho thuê.
the rental market.
Chúng ta nhìn vào cái biểu đồ của
If
thị
we
trường
look
Hồ Chí
at
Minh, chúng
the
ta thấy rất
chart
rõ
for
ràng
Ho Chi Minh
hầu
City,
hết các cái khu vực trước đây là những khu vực
most
có tỷ
of
trọng sinh
the
lời cho thuê
districts
rất là
that
cao.
earlier had
Hai, quận
rental
7 thì đến nay
yields like
cái tỷ lệ
District
này,
2 and
cái tỷ
District
lệ
7,
mức sinh lời từ
now
các cái
the
dự án cho thuê
yields
hiện tại đã giảm rất là nhiều
from
và
the
giảm khá là
rental
cao.
projects has
Tại thị trường Hà Nội cũng vẫn ghi nhận cái xu hướng
significantly
giảm, nhưng
reduced.
cái tỷ trọng
In
giảm
Hanoi, it is
thấp
also a
hơn so với
decrease,
thành phố Hồ Chí
but
Minh.
less
Thì
than
hy vọng
in Ho
rằng
Chi Minh
là khi
City.
mà dịch bệnh được
And it is
kiểm
hoped
soát và
that
khi là
when we
các
can
cái
control
người nước ngoài có
the
thể quay
pandemic
lại trở lại
and
Việt
when
Nam
expats
thì
and foreigners can come back,
cái thị trường cho thuê nó có thể
the
sẽ
rental market
giúp cải thiện cái thị trường cho thuê.
can improve.
Chúng ta sẽ đi tiếp qua
We
cái
will move on to
như vậy thì trong
the
cái bối
next
cảnh
part.
thị trường có nhiều yếu tố chi phối như vậy thì các chủ đầu tư đã làm gì để giúp duy trì
changing
cũng như là
market,
đẩy mạnh được cái hiệu quả bán
what
hàng của mình.
have the
Thì rõ ràng chúng ta thấy
developers had to
một cái thời
promote
gian dài
their
kéo dài một thời gian dịch bệnh kéo dài như vậy
services
thì cái
and
thói quen
products
cũng như rằng là
after a long
cái
time
tư duy
of
về
the
đầu tư
pandemic.
của các nhà đầu tư
Habits
cũng đã thay đổi rất là
and
nhiều.
investment
Và
mindset
cái
of
nhu cầu
investors
của người
have
mua để
changed,
ở
and
cũng đã có
local
những sự thay
buyers
đổi.
also have changed
Thì
their
để mà
demand
giúp cho cái
in order
việc
to
triển khai
support
các việc bán hàng và
selling
các cái hoạt động kinh doanh
and
nó
other
hiệu quả và duy trì được
businesses.
cái hiệu quả, thì các chủ đầu tư lớn đưa ra những cái chính sách mà tôi nghĩ là những chính sách
big
khá là đột
developers
phá
have
về mặt
come
tài
up
chính để
with
giúp
innovative
cho các cái khách hàng của mình có thể
support
sở
policies
hữu
to
cũng như là mua
help
nhà một cách dễ dàng hơn. Thì chúng ta có
clients,
các chính sách như là
customers, for
Home
example,
for Home, nhà đổi nhà
Home for Home,
của chủ đầu tư Masterise Home, hay là
Masterise
Vinhome
Home,
Priority
or
của chủ
Vinhome's
đầu tư Vinhome.
Priority
Khi
from
mà đưa ra
Vinhomes.
các cái gói hỗ trợ cũng như là các chính sách hỗ
They
trợ liên quan tới
provided
tài
support
chính khá là tốt.
policies
Các cái
very
chủ đầu tư
good financially,
mà có các cái sản phẩm
and
đã
other
hoàn
developers
thì cũng
that
đã
are having
đưa ra
projects
những cái chính
that
sách
are going to
bàn
be
giao
launched
nhanh hoặc là có
has
thể
got
bàn giao trước
the
khi
quick
thanh toán để mà giúp
transference
cho khách hàng có thể mua nhà một cách dễ dàng hơn
policies,
và có thể
or they can move in
thúc đẩy cho
before
cái việc quyết định
paying
mua nhà
full,
dễ dàng hơn.
and this can
Bên cạnh đó thì cái
promote
việc
the
dịch bệnh
decision
kéo
of
dài
buying,
nên cái công
and
tác bán hàng
also
hoặc là các
because
hoạt động
of
triển khai
the
bán hàng
pandemic,
chung trước đây nó không
we
còn
have
được triển
to
khai hiệu quả cho thời
limit
điểm hiện tại
the
nữa. Thì các chủ
face-to-face
đầu tư
selling
cũng như là các cái
activities,
đơn vị môi giới họ cũng đã
and
suy nghĩ và cũng đưa ra nhiều cái phương
the
án. Thì
brokers,
trong đó các cái phương án sử dụng các cái mảng sử dụng giải
the
pháp về công nghệ
mediators
giúp cho cái công tác
and the
bán hàng cũng như
developers
các chủ đầu tư đầu
have
tư rất là nhiều.
leveraged technologies
Việc triển khai ví
for
dụ như
selling.
là bán hàng thông qua các cái
For example,
ứng dụng
selling
hoặc
through
là bán hàng
apps
dựa trên các cái buổi
or
bán hàng trực tuyến
online
hiện tại đang được
platforms.
các chủ đầu tư áp dụng khá là
These
nhiều
have
để
been
nhằm duy trì được
greatly
cái hiệu
leveraged
quả bán hàng.
by
Vậy nếu
developers
như trước đây
in
thì
order
khách
to
hàng khá là
retain
khó chấp nhận
their
nghĩa là họ khó có thể chấp nhận những cái
earlier
giải pháp mới như thế, thì đến
customers
thời điểm hiện tại
didn't
thì
accept
đối với các nhà
the
đầu tư, đối với
new
các
method
khách
of
hàng
selling,
thì
but
họ cũng bắt đầu
now
đã thay đổi về cái tư
investors
duy
and
cũng như là thói
customers
quen
have
bán hàng,
changed
thói quen
their
mua hàng của mình.
mindset and changed their habit of buying.
Nhìn vào cái số lượng căn hộ
Looking at the number
chào bán
of
thành công trong
sold
thời gian quý
units
2 thì
in
chúng ta thấy
quarter
là
2,
nó cũng tương ứng với lại cái xu hướng
it
của nguồn
is
cung. Khi mà
relevant,
thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
corresponding
thì chúng ta
to
nhận thấy
the
rằng là
supply
cái tỷ trọng
trend.
số lượng sản phẩm
In
mà
Ho
chào
Chi Minh
bán
City,
nhiều nhất nó vẫn nằm ở phân khúc tầm trung.
most of
Tuy
sold
nhiên thì cái
units
số
are
lượng sản phẩm
in
ở phân khúc
mid-end,
cao cấp
but the
chào bán thành công nó vẫn
luxury
nằm ở mức khá là tốt,
sold
và
units
hầu
are
hết
also
là
good,
bán ở các cái
and
dự
mostly
án được chào bán
in
trước đây,
projects that
những dự án cũ,
were launched earlier
bởi vì số
or
lượng nguồn
existing
cung trong
projects,
cái giai đoạn
because
này của phân khúc cao cấp khá là ít,
we
nên
don't
hầu như
have
những khách hàng có
many
nhu cầu
new
với phân khúc này họ
launch
tìm mua đến các cái sản phẩm được
in
chào bán trước đây.
this
Ở thị
period
trường Hà
of
Nội thì
time
cái xu hướng này nó
for
vẫn
the luxury.
tương tự như là cái xu
In
hướng
Hanoi,
của nguồn
it is
của
also
nguồn cung,
similar
thì
to
thấy rằng
the
là
supply
cái
trend.
tỷ lệ chào bán thành công
Most
nó
of the
vẫn chiếm tỷ
sold
trọng cao nhất
units
ở phân khúc tầm
are
trung
in
và nó có xu
mid-end
hướng giảm khoảng nhẹ khoảng 6% so với lại
decrease
cái thời điểm
slightly
của quý 1.
compared to quarter
Và
one.
một điều may mắn rằng là cả
And
hai thị trường luôn thì số
fortunately,
lượng
in both
sản phẩm chào
markets,
bán
the
trong 6
number
tháng đầu năm 2021 đều
of
tăng
new
hơn
launch
từ 20 đến
first half
28%
have increased from
so
20
với
to
thời điểm
28%.
của 6 tháng năm 2020.
It is about
Đây
the
là cái
sold
thống kê
units.
về cái
And
số lượng của
in
các cái dự
this
án
slide, we can
nhà
see
phố, biệt
the
thự
number of
và
villa,
nhà phố thương mại
townhouse,
được chào bán cũng như rằng là tỷ lệ chào bán thành công, thì chúng ta thấy rằng là ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh,
in Ho Chi Minh City,
với phân khúc này
the supply for this segment has decreased sharply
trong suốt thời gian từ quý 4 cho
during
đến
the
thời
time
gian hiện tại.
from last Q4 to now.
Của phân khúc
The supply for this segment is not
theo
abundant,
đó thì cái tỷ lệ mà chào bán thành
and
công
the sale unit is also not high,
ở mức rất là cao,
but it is
và hầu hết
still
các cái dự
at
án
the
này
high
được chào
level.
bán mới đều chào bán
And most
từ
of
95 cho đến
the
100% các sản phẩm được chào
in
bán
most
thành
of
công,
the new projects,
cho thấy rằng là cái nhu
90
cầu
to
đối với
95% of the units are sold.
các sản phẩm gắn liền với
It
đất tại Thành phố Hồ Chí
shows
Minh nó vẫn ở mức rất là
high
cao.
demand
Tại
for
riêng ở thị trường Hà
the
Nội thì
land-based
một lần nữa
products
cũng phải nhìn nhận
in
thấy rằng là
Hanoi,
do là chúng ta có rất là nhiều các cái dự
because
án
we
có quy
have
mô rất là
great
lớn,
supplies
quy mô
with
lớn,
new
nó
large
là giúp cho cái
urban
nguồn cung
projects,
của phân khúc này nó
and
khá là
it
dồi dào.
has
Chúng
provided
tôi ghi nhận thấy rằng
good
là nó
supply
khoảng
for these
hơn
segments.
1.500 sản phẩm
More
được
than
chào bán trong 6 tháng từ đầu năm
1,500
2021,
projects
và cái tỷ
for the
lệ
first half of
mà chào bán
2021,
thành công
and the
của các
sold unit
của các sản phẩm này
of
ở các
these
các
segments
phân khúc nó đều được đạt cái mức khá là tốt.
good.
Vậy thì chúng ta sẽ có triển vọng gì cho năm 2021
what are the outlook for
một điều
2021?
chúng ta thấy là mặc dù hiện tại có rất là nhiều thông tin
Although there
liên quan
are
đến cái
some negative
dịch
information
tuy nhiên
about
thì
the pandemic,
hiện có chúng ta cũng phải ghi
but
nhận thấy rằng là
we
có khá là
also need
nhiều
to recognize
cái công
that
trình hạ tầng cũng đã bắt đầu có những tín hiệu
a lot
lạc
of
quan.
infrastructure
Điển hình như
projects
là cầu Thủ Thiêm
have
2
shown
có thể là
encouraging signs
sẽ hoàn thành cái việc nối
like
nhịp trong năm nay.
Thủ
Đây là một cái
Thiêm
tín hiệu
2
khá là
bridge
tốt, bởi vì đây
has
được đánh
come
giá là
back
một trong những cái công trình
and
trọng
will
điểm
be
tại khu vực
connected
Hồ Chí
by
Minh,
end of
kết
this
nối khu vực
year.
quận 1
This
và
one
khu
of
vực
the
Thủ
key
Thiêm quận 2.
infrastructures
Nó sẽ tạo
connecting
ra một cái
quarter
động
1
lực mới
and
giúp
quarter
cho
2
khu vực Thủ Thiêm
and
sẽ có nhiều cái sự phát triển hơn, và kỳ vọng rằng là khi cầu Thủ Thiêm 2 kết
and
nối
we hope that
nó sẽ
when
tạo ra
we
một cái
have
luồng
the
lưu thông
connected
mới,
demand
cũng như rằng
from Thủ
là
Thiêm,
cái
Thủ
giá
Thiêm
trị
2
đầu
bridge,
tư tại
the
các sản phẩm tại
investment
khu vực Thủ
value
Thiêm
of
theo
products
đó
in
cũng
Thủ
sẽ
Thiêm
thay đổi
will
rất là
also
nhiều.
increase.
Chúng ta cũng có các tuyến metro
We
số
also
1 hiện tại
see
cũng đã
the metro
hoàn
line
thiện,
1
và
almost finished,
các cái toa tàu cũng đã được đưa về
and
thành phố Hồ Chí Minh.
trains have
Hà
been
Nội cũng ghi nhận
transported
được rất là
to
nhiều cái thông tin
Ho Chi
tích
Minh
cực
City.
đối với các
We
công trình
have
hạ
also
tầng. Điều này
positive
cho thấy rằng
news
là
for
mặc dù
infrastructures in
dịch
Hanoi.
bệnh vẫn là một cái
So
vấn đề mà chúng ta
despite
phải đối diện,
the
tuy nhiên
pandemic,
trong thời gian tới nó vẫn có nhiều cái thông tin tích cực,
in the coming time,
biệt,
there will
để hỗ
be
trợ cho cái
good
việc đầu tư.
news to support investment.
Vậy thì trong năm 2021,
In 2021,
chúng ta
for
sẽ có điều
the
gì?
second half, what
Nếu mà theo
do
thống
we
kê
have?
theo đánh giá cũng như là ghi nhận của CBRE thì chúng tôi ghi nhận
According
tại
to
thành phố Hồ Chí
CBRE,
Minh thì
we
số
record
lượng nguồn cung
that
của các sản phẩm trong năm
the
2021
supply
ghi
of
nhận
the
ở mức
new
là
projects in
tương
2021
đối là ổn định
will
so
be
với nguồn
stable
cung của 2020. Bởi
and
vì
almost equal
hiện
to
tại chúng ta cũng thấy
2020,
rằng là thành phố Hồ Chí Minh
because
cũng đang phải đối diện với
in
cái
Ho
diễn
Chi
biến
Minh
dịch bệnh.
City we are now facing
Chính vì
complicated
thế
pandemic,
có thể rằng là
so
điều này cũng sẽ ảnh hưởng một phần
it
tới thị trường
will
nguồn cung của
partly
thị trường nhà ở
influence the
trong năm nay.
supply
Chính vì vậy đối với CBA chúng tôi ghi nhận rằng là có thể
real estate market
năm
in
2021 sẽ
2021. So
vẫn sẽ
we
duy trì được
forecast
cái
that
mức độ ổn định
2021 it will
tương ứng với
be
năm
almost similar
2020.
to 2020.
Nhưng mà khi dịch bệnh sẽ được kiểm soát, cố gắng
But
sẽ được kiểm soát
when
trong năm
the
nay,
pandemic
thì
will
nó sẽ
be
cố gắng
controlled
tạo
this
cái
year,
đà tăng cho
and it will
2022.
create a
Thì
momentum
theo đó
for
2022 sẽ
the
ghi nhận được
growth
cái
in
nguồn cung cũng
2022,
như là tỷ lệ chào bán thành
and there
công
will
nó sẽ tốt hơn.
be better
Riêng ở thị trường Hà Nội thì nó lại
new
duy
land
trì được
supply
một
and
cái đà
sold
tăng,
units.
và
In Hanoi,
chúng tôi kỳ vọng rằng là
the
2021
momentum
nó
has
sẽ có
been
nguồn
maintained,
cung
and we
vượt
hope that in
và cao hơn
2021,
so với
new land
2020.
supply will
Và điều này nó sẽ tạo
exceed
cái đà tăng
2020, and
cho
this
thời gian
will
tiếp theo.
create a driver for the coming
Về mức
periods.
giá thì ở hầu hết các phân khúc
Regarding
thì chúng
the
tôi
selling price,
vẫn nghĩ rằng là cái
in
phân
most
giá
segments, we think that
ở các phân khúc nó sẽ đều tăng. Bởi vì mặc
there
dù
will
thời
be
điểm hiện tại và
increase
đặc biệt
in
là
the
trong thời
selling
gian qua,
price.
chúng ta theo cái sự quan sát thị trường, chúng ta cũng nhìn nhận rằng là ngay cả
We
trong thời gian thị
have
trường gặp rất
witnessed
là nhiều
that
khó khăn
even when the
về nguồn cung,
market experienced
tình hình dịch bệnh,
difficulties in
nhưng ở
supply,
các phân khúc nó đều ghi nhận
but
mức giá tăng, và đây
we
cũng sẽ là cái
recorded
xu hướng
the
nó vẫn duy trì được cái xu hướng
increase
này
in most
đối với cái thị
segments,
trường
and
sơ
the
cấp
trend
trong thời gian
is
tới.
expected to
Đặc biệt là những cái phân khúc như
maintain
phân khúc hạng
for
sang,
the
khi mà nó xuất hiện thêm nhiều các cái
market,
dự án
especially in
có cái
the
mức giá
luxury
cao,
luxury
thuộc cái phân khúc,
segment,
những phân khúc căn hộ thương hiệu vân
have
vân, thì nó
branded
sẽ làm
residence apartments, and it will change the price of the segment. And in Hanoi, we haven't noticed new launch of luxury projects, but we hope that in the coming time there may be some new luxury projects in other segments, the demand and the performance and the sales units of Hanoi. We have witnessed many positive signs, and that shows that the demand for the apartments by investors have increased.
Chính vì điều này thì cái kỳ vọng về cái vấn đề tăng giá ở các phân khúc chúng tôi cũng khá là tự tin.
We are also confident in the expectation for increased price because what will be the key drivers for the time from now to 2021 and in the future.
Cái việc làm việc tại nhà một thời gian lâu dài nó có thể ảnh hưởng rất nhiều.
Working from home for a long time can influence the habits of the buyers as well as
các công ty.
The habits of companies
and là những chủ đầu tư mới,
new investors
khi mà đưa các sản phẩm chào bán sản phẩm
and developers when launching new projects, they will need to think more about the utilities
đi kèm với các sản phẩm của
mình, utilities that are connected with their products so that it can meet the demand of people who work from home for a long time. The second trend is that
xu hướng đầu tư thì hầu như
earlier
thấy xu hướng đầu tư tại thị trường
the investment trend in the north and the south were the two regions that attract most of the investment, but due to the change of the supply structure as well as the change in the selling price of both markets, there could be a trend of people from the south investing in the north, and it will change it will reverse the past trend of investing from the north to the south. Now it will be from the south to the north.
Nó vẫn sẽ là xu hướng của khu vực phía Bắc.
And because we still have the increasing price trend in the north, and the market is diverse, and the price is lower than in the south, so there is still space for investors. And the third trend, branded residence, will be a trend. It has emerged already. Besides Masterise Home, there are other developers that are studying and preparing and going to launch new products, and that may create a new segment for a group of investors and buyers who use these luxury products, and it is also in line with other countries like Singapore or Thailand.
Các cái dự án khu đô thị lớn của các cái thị trường lân cận
The township projects in neighbor provinces like Long An, Đồng Nai, and Bình Dương continues to attract investors when the land availability in Ho Chi Minh City is not
Long An, Đồng Nai với Bình Dương lại nổi lên như là những khu vực
Long An, Bình Dương and Đồng Nai have good land availability, and the trend of investing in these projects are increasing, and it is expected that it will continue in the future.
Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh đang triển khai mạnh cái
Ho Chi Minh City is promoting vaccination, and I think that in the coming time the government will also promote vaccination. This is also the global trend and also regional trend. And vaccination will create positive consumer confidence, and we hope that in the near future investors will come back to Vietnam, and we can come back to the pre-COVID level and performance, because Vietnam is a rather potential market for apartment investment. and also landed properties.
Các cái nhà đầu tư trong khu vực đều đánh giá rất là cao.
This has been highly appreciated by international investors.
Thì chúng ta sẽ chào đón trở lại các nhà đầu tư nước ngoài. Thì cho nên là cái phần trình bày của tôi
I have finished my presentation. Thank you very much for your listening, and over back to Jeff.
So to kickstart this morning's Q&A session, I would first like to introduce our panelists for this morning. Firstly, we have the Deputy Managing Director of Masterise Homes, Mr. Jason Turnbull.
Thank you, James.
The CEO of Fraser's Property Vietnam, Mr. Lim.
Good morning.
And COO of KCN Vietnam, Ms. Chan Nguyen.
Morning, James.
And thank you once again to our panelists for joining us this morning. I will be the moderator for the Q&A session this morning. So let's kick off with a quick poll, which will be coming up on the screen now. So while the audience will be answering the poll questions, we can kickstart with some of the questions that are related to the poll. So I will open these questions up to all of our panelists, and I would like to hear from all of you. That'd be great. So firstly, how has COVID-19 impacted your respective firm, and what is your general outlook for 2021?
Happy to go first, James?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I feel that there's been quite a resilience in the market and the economy in general, and especially in the property market in Vietnam. We've seen a really good resilience. For Masterise Homes, we were very quick to adapt business continuity plans and adapt to what is the new norm for business in the current environment. Look, in a time of uncertainty, we've also seen that the real estate segment is where a lot of people have been going for surety in ensuring that their investment needs, and that customers, we've seen customers very quick to adapt to change in the changing environment as well, and that living from home, being more aware about hygiene and the environment. So it's all about change and being adaptive to change, and we've been accommodating in that space. Now, as far as the outlook's concerned, look, we're very confident as well, given the current Vietnam government's approach with tracking and tracing of the virus and the vaccine programs that are in place. And we understand that there's 8 million new vaccines coming shortly. So it's all very positive. We've seen, from an economy perspective, GDP growth for Q1, 4.4%, Q2, over 6% as well, and the future outlook for H2 equally in 6 and 7% ranges. So it's very positive outlook that we're seeing, and also investor sentiment. What we at Masterise Homes are seeing is very positive, and that the results that we're seeing to date, and the future outlook is very positive for us.
Great. And Mr. Lim?
Yeah, for Fraser Property Group, actually we have been having quite busy for the last 12 months. So firstly, actually we have finished our construction for the Q2000, our first mixed-use project, and handed over to the home buyer. 90% handover, even during these COVID times. And construction schedules are in time, quality, everything are quite good. Got a good review from the customer as well. Secondly, also we have actually took the opportunity during COVID time last year to refurbish and call it asset enhancement for the mailing point. So we managed to convert the so-called Grade B 28 years old building to I would say it's considered as one of the Grade A building in town at the moment. So the result, everything has been quite rewarding as well. The occupancy now we hit more than 95%, and the rental also have some upward revision. We're very happy for that. So lastly, actually we also have acquired industrial land. I think 100 hectares of industrial land recently have been zoned. So we remain quite bullish with the Vietnam markets, and in the outlooks, I think I agree with Jason. Generally, the government has done a very good job in terms of the control of COVID, and more importantly is like we have to see how's the speed of the vaccination. Then one is catch up well. I think the impact to the market recently will be quite short term. It should be recover very fast. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Chen?
Okay. At KCN, I think what we're experiencing is very little disruption. As a new entrant to the market in the industrial sector, we actually have been using this time to actually prepare our projects. We have now over 250 hectares of land through the north and the south of Vietnam. And at this stage, what we're doing is actually refining our product, designing our product, and getting our permits ready. So once the doors do open, we're ready to kick off and welcome and work with the tenants. At the same time, this period has really allowed us to rethink about the product, how we position ourselves, and also be able to adapt to change. What we're seeing now with COVID is that we need to be nimble to be able to meet the various changes that are coming in place. So it's really a good time for us to rethink and be creative on our approach to the market and to launching our product. In general, I agree both with Jason and Hoa Tung because actually, we still think Vietnam is a very positive place. The key thing is actually for it to remain this way and be still competitive is the rollout of the vaccination and keeping that under control. We need to, as an economy, learn to live with COVID. I don't think COVID will completely go away, but we need to be able to adapt to COVID and be able to make changes to ensure that the business still has the continuity.
Okay, very interesting. So discussions about vaccinations and also industrial, etc. Are there any sectors specifically or asset classes that you think will drive the market moving through the second part of 2021 and into 2022? So maybe again we can hear from our panelists. So down to Jason.
Yeah, sure. Look, from our perspective, in the residential market, we're still seeing a lot of confidence, as I mentioned earlier, and a lot of resilience. So it's all very positive. We are seeing some changes though, and what we're seeing in particular is in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, the demand is moving away from that and into urbanisation. We're seeing some developments in the east and west of Hanoi and in Ho Chi Minh City and Thu Duc City developments where people are moving away. We're seeing, like for example, in Hanoi market, over 4,400 new apartments, of which 77% have been for the urbanised spread of developments. So we're seeing that there's a change and shift in where people are living. We're also seeing around changes around innovation around housing solutions. That is, people now buying and selling more conveniently than they ever before. With introduction of apps and cashless purchases, it's being able to trend away from those traditional purchasing processes. And then we're also seeing the emergence of the branded residence, which we're very proud to be part of. Real niche segment, but the interest has been quite overwhelming and following global trends, and we're very excited about what that outlook is for Vietnam.
Great, Mr. Lim?
Yeah, I think Vietnam has been a growth market in terms of real estate. I think for the COVID time, we are seeing some slowdown in certain sectors, but generally the country fundamental remain very, very strong. Strong urbanization, the GDP growth, and the young populations, and a lot of the household formation as well. Every year, so you can see a lot. So in terms of the real estate, residential market definitely it will still continue to grow. But I think there's some challenge in the market now currently because of the limited supply, especially in Ho Chi Minh City. Where I come from, Mr. Kiet, the slide you can see that actually the supply coming on stream for the last 2 years, actually there's a big drop. as compared with the last. That also causes the pressure to the pricing as well, because supply and demand is a natural thing drive your pricing. But I believe actually residential will remain strong. I think that's a general perception, belief that we have. Another area is actually industrial. Industrial is Vietnam is actually still quite underdeveloped, so there's still a lot of opportunities for Vietnam to attract a lot of FDI coming in, and also coming from the domestics, some of the existing manufacturer expansion. So these are the two areas that actually will continue to push the industrial market to grow well. And last thing actually probably to highlight is a commercial property, example office. So for offices itself, I think the Ho Chi Minh is actually, the good grade of office is still very limited supply. So there could be, we are seeing a trend of the decentralization of office. Many reasons. I think partly BCP plan that you need to have a secondary office for the back office in terms of the pandemic situation. So all these few things will still drive the real estate market in the country to grow well. Yeah.
Okay. For me, I also see that the industrial market will continue to drive well this year, particularly on the backbone of changes in consumer behavior from the e-commerce sector. Given COVID, we're seeing increases on online purchase from consumers, and this will lead back to additional warehousing and logistics need. So I see that sector will be remaining very positive. In addition, the landed mid-tier residential area I see will also continue to drive well for 2021. And particularly with COVID, I think that there is an increase in demand from the end user to have property outside of the city centre where it's a lot more dense. So we'll see that provinces like Dong Nai, Bình Dương and Long An will pick up in terms of sales in the mid-tier segment.
Okay, great answers to start us off. So maybe we can see the initial results of the polls that were taken now, if these will be brought up. Okay, in the meantime, there we go. So in the first 12 months, what will be the biggest challenges for Vietnam? So thinking about the recovery. So quite an even spread with lack of infrastructure capacity, domestic regulatory changes, and lack of land bank, so again, lack of supply, and then of course the outbreak of COVID. So again, thinking about vaccinations and our road to recovery again. Okay, so maybe we'll now move on with some more questions. We've received plenty of questions from our audience members. So let's kick off first with Mr. Jason Turnbull. So this is relating to the retail market. So when do you think Vietnam will be ready for the luxury retail market?
Well, recently, as you're all aware, we launched Grand Marina Saigon under our branded residence of Marriott through our partnership with Marriott International. And for us, it's been a huge success, and we're extremely proud. So this, as in regard to luxury brands, demonstrates a strong demand for ultra luxury and what the power of these international brands bring. And the Vietnamese people and Vietnam market are ready for this and want to enjoy and deserve to enjoy the best of these that internationally has to offer. As far as the Asia Pacific region is concerned, we're seeing that the Vietnamese community, from a happiness and wellness scale, increasing 33% in recent times. We're seeing that the ultra-rich and the people of Vietnam is increasing at a rate of 7%. Even the middle market in Vietnam, as far as average wages are concerned, it's triple-figure growth and forecasted to be the same. So the outlook is all very positive for luxury brands in Vietnam, and the people of Vietnam understand and deserve, and it's a very positive place to be for the outlook.
Great, and we also have some of our CBRE speakers in the wings, so maybe we can turn the same question to Ms. Mai Va, which was about luxury retail market. When do you think Vietnam will be ready?
would like to add my comment is that the luxury market in Vietnam recently that values is at about $1 billion US. However, during the COVID-19 from 2020, the sales growth already reduced to 5 to 6%. Of course, Vietnam is not, incomparable to other countries like Singapore or China. However, I think that Vietnam in the next 5 years that will be in the top 5 of the country that the countries that are having the high income people and ultra wealthy high income people just behind India or China. Currently that Vietnamese people are spending on luxury, mostly on the fashion apparel and accessories. However, in the next coming time, look at the number of the people which spending on the luxury home, like a Masterise Home, that CBRE is one of the leading agencies that is selling the products of the Masterise Home. We will be the witness a number of people spending on the home furnishing segment that will be, interact with the luxury home. And one more thing is that we will be talking about the travel retail and luxury. That when the social distancing and the lift and the travels is open again, then this is a segment that will be gradually recover. Of course, it will be taking some time to recover to the pre-COVID-19. However, the customer that will be spending more on the affordable high-end, not really on the big ticket or premium luxury. Thank you.
So thanks very much, Ms. Mai, and to Jason for your responses. So we have a question now regarding the office sector. So I think maybe for Mr. Lim.
Yeah, sure.
This was sailing through the challenges of the pandemic. What are office landlords required to do in order to future-proof office buildings amidst the shift in workspace usage?
With the COVID situation for the past 1 year, I think the topic or the conversation around the office sector is about how to develop or how to create a smart, healthy buildings. I think this is the current hot topic of that. So for Fraser itself, actually for office building and commercial building itself, whether in Vietnam or in Singapore or in Thailand, we actually focus on the framework to how to create ensure clean and make sure that all the disinfection activity that we've done to protect the tenant and customer and also protect the community as well. So this is our current focus. And another area actually we put a lot of attention is about how to create a good quality of the indoor air conditioning. The air quality is very important for us. So the regular cleaning of the air cons, all those things. And in fact for Melting Point itself, we installed the electronic air purifiers at the main aircon chiller system to make sure that all the air inflow coming to the building is got filtered. And of course, it may not filter 100%, but I think this can give you a good quality conditions. And one of the more observation in the future office is actually you will see that there are more and more tenants looking at how to create a backup office. So I will foresee some of the requirement like office decentralization and flexi office space, and how to fix and how to separate a fixed and a flexi office space is important for the tenant at the moment. So for us, actually, what we are doing now is actually we do have one District 2 office building that called Work at Q2. That actually we are working with our existing tenant in Melting Point to create a back office for them. So when you want to have a good BCP in terms of to split the team A, team B, all these features have to come in place. And if you can work with a similar landlord, that will be easy for you to negotiate the rental and also to create a more flexibility for you to plan your resources as well. I mean, especially during this pandemic situation. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Now we have a question related to the industrial sector. So maybe we'll start with Ms. Chan and then move on to Mr. Lim. So the industrial question is regarding to industrial properties are becoming increasingly more attractive as Vietnam benefits from the shift of global supply chain, and Vietnam also liberalizes its trade base. So what are the factors that hinder Vietnam to realize its full potential? And what can be addressed in the short and the medium term?
Okay. From the presentation earlier done by Hugh, he's mentioned a lot about the infrastructure development in the north and the south of freeways, expressways, and ports. But one of the things that is evident is the lag in the rollout of these infrastructure development. This has a huge impact in terms of rolling out within the industrial sector. We rely on accessibility, and this affects cost, logistics costs, and development. So that's one of the key areas in terms of the lag of the infrastructure development. So if the government can keep up with the timeline, it actually will help the economy. Secondly, what I also see and what we're experiencing is the administrative procedures for foreign investors coming in here is a little bit cumbersome. And in different provinces, different interpretations are done. So what we're trying to do at KCN is within all our projects is we're providing a one-stop solution for our customers to assist them and support them through the licensing, the permittings, to get them to go into operation so they can focus on their core business and coming through here. Even just not coming through, but once they're within our complex, we will be adding additional services to support them through the operational lifetime within our complex. So that's another area. The other big area where I see for industrial parks is actually land clearance. Land clearance has actually been a key obstacle for a lot of the developers. The difficulties in negotiating, consolidating, and the paperwork typically can take 2 to 3 years to completely clear a whole industrial park and get all your permits ready. So this really has a huge impact on the developer with costs and their returns and initial rolling out the project as well. So I think in the short term, some of the things that we can address is actually to offer solutions for our tenants. Like I said earlier, what KCN we're trying to do is to offer the solutions in terms of support and administrative services. But I think in the mid to long term, we need to really work with the authorities, and we have the public and the private sector doing further collaboration to improve policies to help streamline and roll out the execution of infrastructure development, clearer policies and guidelines for foreign investors.
Great. So I'll pass on to Mr. Lim and then maybe Anh Hugh as well from our industrial team.
I mean, just now Mr. Hugh also mentioned all the key drivers why industrial should be, blossom in Vietnam. I think that is unavoidable. It will happen, definitely will happen. And industrial is actually the hottest topic in Vietnam market, I think, since the last 2 to 3 years. Of course, the key challenges of what Ms. Chiang has mentioned is very much on how fast the infrastructure can be developed and to help the industry to really put on board. Actually, they have to develop and then they have to start move and do operations. I think in the north of Vietnam, I think the infrastructure is much more established as compared to the south actually. So I think just now he also said that visually, I think some of the highway can be done in the next couple of years. But I think we still have to wait and see for the moment. Of course, another biggest challenge is about the land bank, that what Ms. Chiang has mentioned, the land compensation, land clearance, and even conversion to industrial park from farmland. This actually have take long time actually. So we have quite a few big logistic developers, real estate developer coming to Vietnam. Example, Fraser ourselves, we are new in this sector as well. JD.com, GLP, Logos, Alibaba, of course, KCN Vietnam as well. So these are the big players actually very eager to come into Vietnam to start do the industrial products. So what we are seeing here is actually land is quite complicated for the manufacturers to buy, and because of complication of process and the approval process as well. So what we are seeing now more is actually the ready built or built to suit facilities. Like us actually, we provide a facility, a platform with the built factory, with the land cleared properly to all the manufacturer. That is quite sweet spot, I would call it, is a sweet spot in Vietnam at the moment. So in the short term, we are seeing a lot more demand coming from existing manufacturers. Example, we are seeing some of in Bình Dương itself, we are talked to a few actually big factory now, actually they're working on expansion. But they will not expand to too far away because of resources, because of all the value chain as well. So they will prefer to stay around Bình Dương to look for their new facilities. But it's very hard for them to buy land from the government, so from the government or even for industrial park operator, because there's a limited supply. So what we are doing now is we're providing a build-to-suit facility to them. So this also aligns with some of the players that they go for more asset-light strategies. I mean, they just pay rental rather than to buy the land, go through the lengthy legal process to construct the building. A lot of headache for foreign manufacturer as well. I think for us, Fraser, we have been in Vietnam for more than 20 years. We understand the policy, we understand the way how to work with governments, and we actually can provide, like Ms. Xiang saying, that we can provide one-stop services for all whether the newcomer or existing manufacturer. I also look at another angle, is a medium term, is actually when the vaccination is ready. I mean, the rate is higher, so we have more FDI coming in. So when they first come to Vietnam, I believe they still need to go for those ready facilities. Whether build-to-suit or ready-built factory or warehouses, I think they still need all this. They have this demand in this type of the sectors. So I will see actually industry will continue to do well, especially at the moment. And Vietnam, probably this is a trend for Vietnam. I'm not too sure, Ms. Xiang, I believe this is a trend for Vietnam going forward.
I totally agree with you, Wai Tong. I think it's a very hot sector, but I think a lot of it now is what Wai Tong said, is actually preparing for that wave, because we need to actually be able to provide a faster solution for these foreign investors when they do come in. They don't want to go through the trouble and the time-consuming process to get their facility up. So the demand for already built facilities will continue to be picking up over the next year.
Great insights. And Hugh, any further comments on that question?
So thank you for the great comments from the panelists. We totally agree with the comments from Mr. and also from Mr. Lin, and also the case as well. So the industrial sector is one of the sector that we can see the market sentiment remain very positive, as we mentioned earlier in my presentation. So the challenge that we saw up until now would be the limited supply, the limited land bank in the primary location that we mentioned earlier. So due to the limited supply primary land bank in the primary location, it would cause the land rental to increase sharply between 2019 and 2020 at about 20-25%. And if the land rental increase sharply, it's going to get to the high acquisition cost, and for the fact that the high acquisition cost is one of the important component of the investment analysis by any occupier or by any developer when they make a decision to invest into any country. So if we can get the new supply to come to the market faster, as Ms. Chen said earlier, and then it will help the market to perform better in a way that the occupancy, the market rental, and etc. would be more healthy, and then would attract more occupiers to come to Vietnam. The second thing, cannot disagree more, is the licensing issue. Even though we understand that the government is working very hard to address the licensing procedure in Vietnam, but at the same time, we still need to work more on this one, so that the platform for the occupiers, the platform for the developer can be more fast-tracked, so that they can access the market faster and then provide more solutions, more options to the occupier. Thank you.
So thank you very much to An Hugh and to everybody else for the industrial questions. I think we'll have one more question before we wrap up with some end thoughts. So this question I think we have for Jason. So there have been innovative sales policies introduced to the market. How is Vietnam compared to other countries in the region, and what are the risks and opportunities associated with it?
Yeah, thanks, James. Well, recently, we've seen quite a number of new and innovative breakthrough sales policies introduced to the Vietnam market. And Masterise Homes, we're very proud to have launched recently Home for Homes in partnership with Techcom Bank, which has grown a lot of attention from the market, and we're very excited about that product. So Home for Homes, as we know, is a solution where our clients, our customers, can borrow up to 100% without putting down, any deposit at all, just using their existing assets as collateral up until the time of handover of the new asset. So what this does for our customers, it allows them to reach into secondary markets, and it allows them to relieve them of financial burdens and inconveniences while changing and upgrading in their homes. What it's also doing through Masterise Homes, we're allowing and providing better living standards and allowing more access to better living standards for customers through high-end projects. We're now bringing these high-end projects which are of international standards. So we're very excited that we're able to do that and introduce that to the Vietnam market. What it's also doing, it's opening up the secondary market to Vietnam economy. What it means is there's more supply so that people can upgrade. As an example, what we've seen in Vietnam compared to Southeast Asia, it's 7 to 10 times lower in the secondary market to the rest of Southeast Asia. So this shows that the market is currently underperforming, and so it's a great opportunity.
Great. So we've touched upon many topics today. Unfortunately, we couldn't answer all the questions, so we'll try and answer any remaining questions after this event. So just before we finish, maybe we can have some closing remarks from our panelists. So what can we learn from the last decade and from the COVID era that we're currently in that can support us to make a more sustainable market moving forward throughout the next decade? So maybe we can start from Jason again.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
For us, things that we've learned, it's about the openness for change, that we need to be flexible, that the priorities have changed in business as far as working environments, the work from home, and that people's homes are now becoming their workspace. So we have to be more adaptable. And that's a word that I think through all of us here on the panel this morning. Mm-hmm. It's about that ability to adapt to change. People are expecting different standards of living as far as hygiene is concerned, and also from green and environmental. And so, when we're creating solutions going forward, we need to be understanding, and we need to be adaptable for all those change in market, environment, and the future.
Great. And Mr. Lin?
I think the pandemic has changed a lot of how we work, and how most of the company actually has put a bit more attention to sustainability, and also to pay a lot of attention on social responsibility as well. So I think for Fraser Property as a group itself, we actually prepared for this. I think before this pandemic coming, I think we have been putting a lot of effort to change how we provide the services and how we provide the products in the direction that we can create a more sustainable and more well-being product and services to the customer. I think this is our key commitments. I think it will work even better in this current situation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I would say that the panelists have all mentioned about change, but for me, in terms of one word that can capture that, would be regeneration. It is about relooking at what can be done in a different perspective for the market, and this comes back down to not just as developers building the four walls, but also providing more than just beyond landlord solution as well. This will impact both the end user, the community, and the environment. And also one other key area that we have to think about is welfare with COVID. This comes back particularly for the industrial sector, is labourers, workers, welfare for them, welfare for the community, and this will also impact on residential development in terms of the product that will be launched as well.
Great, thank you very much for the insights. We still have Kit waiting patiently in the wings, and I think we just have a little bit of time just to ask him one question that's been quite prevalent in this regarding the outbreak. So with this fourth outbreak, do you think that the price of apartments can still increase?
Thank you.
$1 million question.
Thank you. I think in the presentations, we also see, and I think that I also mentioned about this quite a long time ago, and it's right now it's still keep it the same. Now you can all see that the price trends since 2020 up to now, even that we have to like live with the pandemic, but however the pricing is still continue increasing. And for our foresees and forecasts, we still can see the trends of increasing the price. Because right now, if we look into the primary price, because you know that like it takes quite a long time for the developer to have to stop their construction and then their selling, and the cost of the finance and a lot of things that they have to push into the construction. And right now you can we also sort the increasing of the raw materials for the construction. So it will make the primary price is keep increasing, and in the other side the demand is still maintained strong. Right now, and in every new launch of the new projects, 80%, 90% in Ho Chi Minh City is sold out. And right now we still see the same trend in Hanoi when the sold unit is over the new supply. So the strong of the demand and the increase of the cost in construction and the cost of development of the new projects. So we still see the development, the increasing trends for the selling price, even that in the primaries. But however, in the secondaries, maybe in some adjustment for the sale price, because we know that the pandemic affects a lot to the investor quite long times. So now a lot of investors, they have to adjust their expectation to reduce the asking price for them to make it more easier to sell. For the conclusion for this, I think the trends of the price increasing is still continues, and for CBREs in every section, we still see it will increase about 3% for each year, and it's some special segment like a luxury segment, it could be about 6 to 9% per year, because we will rethink some new product with a heavy, like very high price. Of course, it will go in with a very highly standard of international standard of luxury. So I think that the trends of increasing price is still continue.
Okay, thanks very much, Kit, for the response. And I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. So this concludes our Q&A session and the event. So I'd first like to thank our panelists very much for coming in this time, and thank all of you at home for watching. So one last thing, if we can just take 2 more minutes of your time, is to scan this QR code or click on the link in the chat box to provide us some feedback. We really appreciate your feedback to continue to improve our events moving forward. And we hope to see you all again in the near future, and wish you a very safe and pleasant day ahead. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Okay.